second, dumps it off short. Quentin Johnston has the first down, and off he goes. They are not going to catch him. No flags. The magic continues for TCU.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Shipley's going to break free. Across the 10, he's into the end zone for a touchdown. 32 yards.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
May looking, guns it in the end zone, touchdown, Carolina. Bryson Nesbitt.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Williams, and it's intercepted. Cam Smith read it so well.
Cam Smith was all over that play.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Shipley's going to break free. Across the 10, he's into the end zone for a touchdown. 32 yards.
Now here's David Smoak and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on this Thursday afternoon. Jack McKenzie. Hello, Jack. Nice to have you with us. Jack McKenzie, who's here every day, but running the mothership today. He probably does that every day, but running the mothership. Garrett's got a few days off. Graham Bronstein and also Emery Winter here. Craig, how's your day?
Going well. Trying to battle this humidity that we're in right now. It's a little more than usual. It's like crazy levels of humidity. If Utah experiences this, I was just saying yesterday, get ready for it, but this is even a level above that. So, if it's like this come whatever that exact date is, Utah travels into Waco, that would be an advantage, I would have to say, for Baylor, because there's no get used to that. I've lived here my entire life. I'm not quite used to it. But, yeah, other than the sweltering sauna when you walk outdoors because it's that time of year, enjoyed the SEC release last night, and I know there's a lot to talk about, but glad people are getting some vacations, and I look forward to my own here, hopefully pretty soon before we get into the full swing of things.
Today we got news about the days of the Big 12 Media Days, July 12th, 13th. Baylor's going to be a part of the first day. Everybody over 2 days will be there in Arlington at AT&T Stadium. I had a workout this morning, and I got to tell you, I went back to the apartment, my condo, and I just dropped my clothes in the washer. It was disgusting. And then I went out and played golf. It's like playing with a wet blanket over my head and shoulders. So good afternoon, 365 Sports. The chat room's already rolling. We will look at the SEC schedule release when it comes to Texas, OU, and also A&M. We'll do that in a minute, and a couple other nuggets about that. Jalen Bridges, who's made the announcement that he's coming back, he'll join us today a little bit after 5 o'clock, right after Craig's off the radar. He'll join us. Jalen Bridges coming back. And I guess, Craig, we can start with that, but also want to get into a Colorado board meeting. Remember last week, I'll tell you a little bit about that and what it might means. And board meetings are normal, but now with the way things are, anytime somebody in the Pac-12 is a board meeting, I think sometimes there's been overreaction. In fact, there has been, but perhaps this one is interesting. Jalen Bridges.
Jalen Bridges deciding to come back to Baylor. I think it's huge news. It's obviously the decision that they were waiting on and the final piece to the roster puzzle. Great player, or pretty good player, definitely contributed in a major way at various times last year. It was a good addition from West Virginia. You don't hit every single transfer necessarily all the time, but I think they did hit with him, and he was a big piece of the success that they had and has the opportunity to be a big piece of the success that they could have next year. It was just a matter of whether or not he'd be around, or, was that threat or that potential decision to go to Australia legitimate. I don't know in the end. I guess we'll hear from him on, how much tossing back and forth he had to do on that call. But, yeah, ultimately he's coming back to college basketball and back to Waco. And I think that's great for Scott Drew and his program. I think it's great for the fans in this area to get another year of watching him and knowing what he can do and do with this team. So, yeah, it's big news and something that's been, out there and kind of floating around and waiting for a resolution. So to have that, I'm sure for Scott Drew more than anybody and his staff, to have that final piece cemented is a great thing, and now they can all move forward.
I mentioned Jalen Hill joined us a little after 5 o'clock today. Had a quick conversation with him on my way here, and we can't wait to hear from him. Also, we'll hear from Ross Dellinger, SI.com. He was sick yesterday. He'll join us at 4:25, and a couple of writers from The Athletic, Sam Kahn, who's been doing that recruiting series, and a story on the SEC schedule, and then also Max Olson, who did a feature and a hell of a story on Mike Gundy, plus news as well on the SEC schedule. So I just sent Brian Howell from the Colorado Daily Camera. I said, so Colorado had a board meeting last week. It eventually was just wiped out. They're going to have one Monday. It all just depends on who you talk to. Brian, I asked him, I said, any idea what's on the agenda? And he said, I have no idea. So is it realignment related? No one, at least that we can tell, can confirm that. I do know that a couple of people who have been pretty good insiders for me and also the site have not said much in the last few days, and not sure if that means that everyone's trying to keep this somewhat, let's get to the meeting and then go from there to see what happens. Now, here's what – go ahead.
I mean, this just rings awfully close to tracking flights during coaching searches.
Which is what somebody said on the site today.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they did.
That just popped into my head. I hadn't read that, so that's funny that somebody else thought that too. But, yeah, that's how it's now kind of – registering with me is the flight trackers. And, there's been times where those meetings were probably relevant and perhaps there was something to it. And then there's been a few times now where they get called off or they have nothing to do with anything realignment related. So, I'm cautious, or at least I'm just sort of like, okay, let's wait and see when it comes to these types of things. But yeah, I mean, maybe there's something to it. If it's like a lot of these others, then there's not, and it's just nothing but a regular meeting. So it will be nice to have some clarity on that. It will be nice to just have some clarity on the situation in general. Mac Rhodes pointed to something having to give here in the next 60 days or so. That kind of seems to be the prevailing thought of most everybody, is there's got to be a resolution reached here pretty soon, and certainly before football season kicks off. So that does give you about 2 more months, but yeah, the days of not having to worry about every meeting that pops up will be good to reach at some point. So yeah, let's see what this is, and maybe it's the big meeting that we've all been waiting for, but maybe then again it's just another one that rolls on by or gets canceled or whatever. So very intrigued by what that ends up being.
I don't think you're going to hear too much other than the fact there's a board meeting Monday. Again, one of the guys that I've relied on who's really tight into this thing said that pretty much everyone wants to just keep their mouths shut, get to the meeting, see what happens, and go from there because of last week's meeting being not blown up, but it did not work out because there were some hey, I want to give my impression or my opinion or how I feel about what we might be discussing when it comes to the possibility of any kind of realignment news in Colorado. Now, the SEC schedule. This is, first of all, let's go to Texas. And this is their schedule. We gave you a little sneak peek yesterday. These are the SEC games. Now, remember, there is the non-conference game at Michigan. But they're going to play the Gators, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi State, the Hogs. Longtime rivalry, of course, one of the greatest games ever, that 69 shootout in Fayetteville when Texas won and President Nixon declared them the national champions. There's the game in Dallas, of course, with Oklahoma. We knew that. We knew about A&M, and Vanderbilt is also among their 8 SEC games. We'll stay on this one first, Jack, if you don't mind. Craig, we knew about OU. We knew about Georgia, Arkansas, and A&M. Your thoughts about the other games, including maybe in a year, Billy Napier with another year under his belt where Florida might be.
Or they might be with a first-year head coach. That's the Toothless Gators program compared to what you think of when you see the brand name right now, at least. And maybe Billy Napier, it does change that by the time that game rolls around. A lot of mystery surrounding what the end result will be for them in year number 2. So will be a schedule that we will need to review, obviously, and may look drastically different. Who knows what Oklahoma really looks like after this year, or A&M for that matter. I mean, who the heck knows what's going on there after this upcoming year? But yeah, I mean, I think it's a breath of fresh air for Oklahoma fans, for Texas fans. You get kind of the same old schedule every year, and they've made no bones about feeling like they're bigger than the other brands they've been surrounded by for a long time now. So now you're in a pool of peers, and you've got some fresh matchups, fresh road trips, big-time brands, big-time, stadiums with big-time capacities. Everything's just, everything's bigger, like in the state of Texas, right?
Yep.
It's kind of what it feels like for the two teams with these schedule releases. And, the Michigan non-conference game, I think, adds a lot of spice to this, particularly when you look at the fact they only play 3 road games in the SEC. They only played 3 this year, or this particular schedule, because Oklahoma's a neutral site.
Right.
So, that's one that will obviously rotate as far as home and away. And so this time around, it's going to be Texas's home game. So it's a neutral site, right? I don't really consider that like a true road trip.
Both teams lose a home game, and yet they don't. Yeah,
every other year. So this particularly works out to where, that will mean that they have that as a road game, and so therefore they only have 3 true SEC road games. But then that Michigan road game obviously throws a little bit extra salt on there for the toughness factor, and I think that'll be good, because otherwise I think that it's a pretty reasonable schedule that you'd feel pretty content with. I think if you're a Texas fan, you see all your main rivals on there, ones that you've been chomping at the bit to play. Your main rival isn't going anywhere. That game continues on as is. Georgia, obviously, that's a huge game. I mean, Florida, that's Texas and Florida. There's been a lot of parallels with them over the years, just in terms of their athletic departments and kind of their standing as state schools. And then the rest of them are kind of just, like Kentucky. That's cool. That could be a hell of a game. I don't know.
Hey, that's with Stoops, and he's got them, like, kind of reminds me of, they're really solid right now, and it is sustainable. How high their ceiling is, I don't know, but they're not an easy out by any means. They can beat pretty much anybody on a certain game, and I'm not just saying that because you have to play the game. They're really pretty tough, and so he's got that going well.
Yeah, Mississippi State, I mean, they're, a tough team. I mean, it's not like the sexiest game either, but that's a game that's now, instead of playing Iowa State, you're playing Mississippi State, and that's a little bit of a step up, probably, whoever you're comparing it to most of the time, as far as a mid-tier, sort of mid to lower tier Big 12 team. Would you agree with that? Mississippi State, just because of the talent in the league.
When they had Dak, they had a nice little surge, and obviously Leach.
They're not a premier team in that league, but they're a very good to sometimes really good team, and who knows what they'll be, but they're going to be tough. So, yeah, I mean, that's 4 really fun home games. That's 4, Vanderbilt's not the sexiest away game, but that's a Nashville trip, so that'll be fun for Texas fans. Then you got the Michigan road game. So I think it's a great schedule, the one that you'd have to be super excited over. And I do like that there is that Michigan road game to balance out their lack of road games in the SEC. It is weird, though, to look at this and know, and I know everybody else has pointed this out at some point or another, but you're really playing 4 road games. You're playing 3 road games, 3 true road games in a 16-team league. And I know that'll rotate. Like, it'll be 4 the following year, because then, they'll be hosting the Texas OU game.
Well, yeah, and then there's also maybe new opponents that aren't on this schedule that you might, you're right. But they'll most likely, it'll flip next year, the 25, yeah.
The what?
Their road games you would think would flip, that they might have 5, including the neutral game. Is that possible in 25?
No, they'd have 4. Because they'll be the road team.
Against Oklahoma. Okay.
So that neutral site game means that it's just, and I guess that'll just, what that'll mean is they'll have one less, I guess, home game technically.
I don't know. We're getting way too into that.
It made more sense when I was looking at it last night. The fact that Oklahoma only hosts 3 true home games this year, because they're hosting Dallas.
Right.
So that will rotate, where that's kind of a weird deal where you have one less.
And then it flips in 25.
Yeah, but they're used to that, obviously, because they've been doing that. But, yeah, that does have an effect on your road games. So next year, Texas will only have 3 real SEC road games, because there will be a neutral site. So that works out in their favor, but that Michigan game counteracts that. So fun schedule. Yeah.
All right. So Oklahoma, I know we have the quote from Brent Venables. Oklahoma's schedule came out, and this is Brent Venables in a quote. This is from Ryan Aber. if we just get better on defense, we're going to win 10-plus games and have a chance to hang a banner up at the end of the year. That's the upcoming season. That's not the SEC season. That's interesting. Their games, we don't have a graphic for them. Their games, though, they'll host Alabama, they'll host Tennessee, and also South Carolina. Their road trips, they play at LSU, at Auburn, at Ole Miss, and also at Missouri.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, it would be very interesting to see how good this team is this year. Based on that quote, based on just the fact that a lot of people chalked up last year to being a transitional year, and that's not Oklahoma, and they're going to be better than that because they are Oklahoma, right? And that's just not the standard, and so they're going to start getting back to that, I suppose, this year after, kind of breaking Venables in. And, if they reemerge and they go and, stand atop the conference like they did so many times under Lincoln Riley and Bob Stoops, and I'm sure they'll head into the SEC with all the confidence in the world that they can roll in there with this schedule and win a bunch of games. But if they sputter a little bit and it looks closer to last year than it has many of the years prior to that, then I think you look at this schedule and you go like, wow, they could lose like 7 games.
Yep,
legitimately. You get Texas in Dallas, again, neutral site game, so you only get 3 home games in the SEC. So that was my point, is if you're Oklahoma, you got all these big matchups, and that's fun, or Texas, depending on what year we're talking about, but you get 3 home games
on some years
in a 16-team league.
Yep.
I just find that really weird.
Well,
and
maybe by 25, Craig, they'll have 9 games.
Yeah. I'm just saying for right now, though, and that fuels kind of the argument about the 9, right, is that it's just sort of weird in a league that big that certain teams who have those neutral site contests, and OU, Texas aren't the only ones. You got Florida, Georgia, obviously, that also have that. Arkansas and A&M also have neutral site, so they deal with that as well. But that is weird to only have 3 true home games on a given year in a big league like that. So Alabama, Tennessee, and South Carolina being those 3 home games,
and Beamer seems to have some momentum after the end of last year. They won't have Rattler, but he said, he might build something that's pretty good.
Yeah, quite possible. So there's very much a chance that they could go, 0-3 on that slate potentially. I mean, we'll have to see. Again, that's a year away. And then for LSU, Auburn, Ole Miss, and Missouri to be your road teams, that's pretty tough sledding. So this is what everybody wanted. This is what everybody asked for. And I think that right now, the fact that you're not winning or losing these games and you got a while to wait, you're just looking at the sexy road trips and the team names and the difference and the freshness of it all, and that's all fun and exciting. But it'll be,
then you have to play the game.
It'll be eventually game time, and do they go in there, both of them, and win a bunch of games right away and not feel much of an effect, or is there a little bit of a, hey, they're 2-6 in conference right now because of how tough the schedule is? That's the big question mark. But yeah, it's fun to look at and fun to hypothesize about.
Alabama in 24 will play at Georgia, and this is part of the quirkiness of the SEC schedule. Alabama and Georgia. Now, Georgia has been elite recently. Always been pretty good. But it's only the 6th time in 20 years that they will play. That's that quirkiness of the SEC schedule. So they'll have, that's the premier game, it appears, in the 2024 conference schedule based on what we know right now. Now, Texas A&M, here's their schedule. And we have a graphic for you. LSU, Texas, Missouri, Auburn, Florida, Mississippi State, South Carolina, Arkansas. Those are their SEC games, plus a non-conference game against Notre Dame. The other 3, with all due respect to the Bowling Green, New Mexico State, McNeese. But they get LSU in Texas, and they also get Auburn in Florida, South Carolina, Mississippi State, Missouri, and Arkansas, which they've played a lot of classic games with Arkansas, and then the Notre Dame game in the non-conference schedule.
Yeah, it struck me with the other 2 as well, but having those 4 non-con games, again, with this 8 games, I know it's going to change and all that, but it really just looks sillier, every time you kind of start pouring through it for various reasons. And so, love the Notre Dame, but I don't think you need Bowling Green, New Mexico State, and McNeese all on the same schedule when that could be a 9th SEC game. I mean, that's my opinion. I think that's the opinion of a lot of people, and I understand the toughness argument and all that, but that just seems a little excess when there's a far better matchup that you could put together. But they're a team that's been living in the fire for a while now. So this isn't anything new to them, having a schedule like this. I do think, for them, it's unfortunate that's a year where you do have only 3 home games in the SEC because of that neutral site with Arkansas. So just like I was talking about with OU and Texas, and those will be, I don't know how good Missouri is expected to be. Graham, what do we think? Are we thinking big-time Missouri football next year, 2 years from now? He's like, no.
Bowl team?
Yeah,
okay.
bowl
All
team.
right.
But, Arkansas, who knows? But LSU and Texas, that's going to be obviously massive games, especially that UT game in College Station. So that argument's now over of where that first one would be played. I think that's right. I've explained why. And then, you've got to love it if you're an A&M fan going to Auburn, Mississippi State, Florida, South Carolina. That's a pretty salty little road slate. They've had some battles with Mississippi State. And some of these others as well, but that's not the most brutal schedule imaginable. But Auburn and Hugh Freeze in a couple years,
who knows what he might do, and who knows if Napier does flip the script in Florida in a couple of years.
And as you said, South Carolina's got some momentum with Shane Beamer, so that could be a much more dangerous looking little 4-game slate by the time it rolls around. But it's for all 3. It's been fun to pour through these.
I love. Yes, there's going to be games that perhaps are a lot easier. There are non-conference games, sure. Fill up your stadium and beat people. Pay guys, other programs, get some money because they need it for their budget. But when I saw like Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Oklahoma, and Georgia, Texas and Georgia, Oklahoma, Bama, LSU, I love it. That's just the college football fan in me. I absolutely love it. And a lot of talk and chatter, of course, on the chat room as well. It does appear, and you can throw it out there if you wouldn't mind, who do you think in the first year, 2024, between Texas and OU, and yes, we'll get Big 12 news. We'll talk to Max and Sam about it here in a minute, and Ross Dellinger. Who do you think among the two, in the chat room, give me some quick answers, had the tougher schedule so far, looking at it as of right now, not knowing who either team might be, better or about the same or worse in a couple of years. So it looked like at first glance that Oklahoma probably has the tougher schedule in 2024.
I think so, without question.
Yeah. The Longhorns, Oklahoma, hands down. Texas, easily OU. Oklahoma, because of their road games, Paxton thinks Oklahoma.
Yeah, for
OU
sure.
for sure. Texas, Oklahoma. So about 60-40 right now based on the chatter in the chat room with Oklahoma there. So also the U.S. Open, we'll hear from Art Strickland later in the show about 5:30 from LA North Country Club. Ricky Fowler, Rob Bolton told us this yesterday, shot 62. That's incredible at the Open, and of course it can get in your way, but also the names that are a part of the top of the leaderboard, the second wave's about to tee off. Xander Schauffele, 6 under, now 7 under with 2 holes to play. Scheffler, 4 under with 1 to play. DeChambeau shoots 3 under. He's done for the day. Max Homa, 2 under with 1 hole to play. Those are some dudes at the top of the leaderboard. And Ricky Fowler, I watched his iron play, was spectacular. So good with him. Butch Harmon's got him playing well, and Rob Bolton told us that yesterday. All right, when we come back, Sam Kahn contacted me about a month ago about a series The Athletic is doing on each program in college football. They're the biggest recruit that kind of launched a program, the one that got away, this and that, the best maybe sleeper or the one that was much better than anyone thought. The players will discuss that with not just about Baylor, but other Big 12 as well. And his thoughts as he wrote a story about A&M and the SEC schedule. This is 365 Sports. Don Shumidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center off Valley Mills and also Richland Drive in Waco. Today played a round of golf earlier today at Bear Ridge, our sponsor of all of our golf coverage, by the way. Played pretty well, had a couple of cigars in the course, but it was so humid. As Craig mentioned, it was so humid, like smoking a cigar when there is no breeze and it's like 90-something, just didn't seem to make much sense. But I did have a couple of cigars, and I get them, when I do, from Don Shumidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center. I had an Ashton and also La Fontana. Churchill length, I like the longer cigars when I'm playing around a golf. Carol, Ashley, and Cheyenne can help you select the cigars you want. Hey, Father's Day coming up this weekend, and maybe if your father does smoke cigars, you can get a gift box or whatever you want when it comes to cigars, a humidor, a cutter, torch lighter, whatever's there. And CBD products, every night I take a gummy, and every night allows me to have a restful and a lot quicker fall asleep feel. And when I wake up the next morning, it feels so much like I did get an extra 45 minutes to an hour of sleep. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans, tell Carol, Cheyenne and Ashley Smoky sent you in the Townwest Shopping Center off Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
It's Ram season at Allen Samuels in Waco, and the deals couldn't be any hotter. Shop the greatest selection of new inventory in Central Texas and save big on Ram trucks. Now offering 10% off MSRP on a new 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab, or get 2.9% for 72 months. The choice is yours. Plus an extra $500 bonus cash to first responders. Allen Samuels in Waco is the place to shop Ram trucks. Visit today or browse online at allensamuelsdcj.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Sam Kahn, theathletic.com, has been a busy man, always is. Has written the series that they're having right now about programs and the best gets, the ones that got away, et cetera, the program changers, and also the SEC schedule release. When I asked Sam yesterday about his schedule, he goes, it's not going to be today because we knew the SEC schedule was coming up, and I didn't even know that it was that evening yet. Sam, thanks for your time. So the schedule is out. There's a lot of great matchups. Your thoughts about the first year for Texas, Oklahoma, and A&M, of course, their rivalry being reignited again with the Longhorns.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Dave. First of all, Texas A&M is top of the line for me. That to me, we shouldn't have been gone the last 12 years. It'll be 13 when they reunite next year without this rivalry. It's a shame. It's one of the unfortunate byproducts of conference realignment. But fortunately, in this instance, the domino effect brought them back together. So I can imagine just how in demand that ticket is going to be next November when they kick off in Kyle Field. And I'm assuming it's going to be November. I sure as hell hope it's Thanksgiving weekend like it usually is. But that's going to be a great game. And you look at Texas and Oklahoma's schedule, and look, one of the reasons that they moved, they made the move for a lot of reasons. Money, I think, number one. The security of the SEC in terms of stability, number two. But they also wanted some marquee matchups against some of these teams in the SEC. And guess what? They got them. Texas is going to host Florida. They're going to host Georgia. They get to go to Arkansas, which, of course, is an old traditional rival. Oklahoma gets to host Alabama. Tennessee, they got to go to LSU. They got to go to Auburn. And they'll get to reunite, rekindle their rivalry with Missouri. So I think it's a terrific schedule. I think it's going to be tough for both. And I think that makes 2023 an even bigger year for both of those programs because neither of them right now are at the level that they want to be and that they're going to need to be to compete at a high level in the SEC. So it behooves them both to take really big steps forward this year before joining the SEC in 2024.
Sam, did you think that there was actually a chance that Texas game would not be played in College Station? I mean, it seemed like a no-brainer given the Aggies had been in the league for a while longer. It's just the generous thing to do. Hey, you guys arrived here first and kind of opened the door. And then obviously there's a lot of the trash talk back and forth and the wondering, but did you ever really think that game would be played in Austin?
Who knows, because all this stuff happens behind the scenes. I just found it very interesting how certain Ross Bjork was about that. And he never really said it explicitly, but it seemed to me like he got some kind of assurance from the conference office or Greg Sankey or whomever. And I think that's probably a make good to Texas A&M for inviting Texas in the conference, because when they first made the move to the SEC in 2011, 2012, I think one of the gentleman's agreements, so to speak, that Mike Slive had given was that they wouldn't invite another in-state team without getting the blessing of the school that was in the league. Well, of course, we know it didn't happen that way this time around. So I think probably in Texas A&M fans' eyes, it's the least the SEC could have done.
Sam, what are your thoughts about it? We saw these names, these juicy matchups, and what it would be like if there were 9 conference games, and that might be another handful of juicy games on top of the ones we know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we look at right now, I'm looking at Texas A&M schedule in 2024. They don't play Alabama. So maybe you squeeze that game in. Maybe you get to Georgia coming to College Station, which still has not happened, even though Texas A&M has been in the league for more than a decade. So that would make it even better. And I think that's why so many people want them to go to 9 games, because you're going to get the better matchups. And also you're going to substitute that big-time conference matchup for what is probably a non-conference game against a Group of 5 program. And no offense to the teams in those conferences. I love Group of 5 football. But for the fans of these SEC schools, they want to see the bigger matchups. And certainly the TV networks want to see those bigger matchups, and they're going to get more viewers, more ad revenue for those instances. So I think ultimately we'll get there. It's unfortunate we didn't do it now, but I think at some point we'll get to 9 conference games for everyone.
Do you think there's anything from Texas A&M and Missouri's original journey into the SEC? Now, granted, they were both pretty successful pretty quick. Like, Missouri played and represented the SEC East right away. A&M obviously had Johnny Mania that broke loose pretty quickly. But are you expecting the same type of just natural transition? Are you expecting more of a maybe a delay in the overall success that Oklahoma and Texas are accustomed to or desire, or making too much out of making that jump from the Big 12 to the SEC? Or will it depend on kind of what we see from those teams this season, you think?
I think some of it depends on what we see this season, but honestly, I don't think it's going to be as daunting as some people think, because I think a lot of the perception of making the jump comes from the fact that, okay, the Big 12 is a quote-unquote weaker conference. But let's be real, and I wrote this in one of my columns today. The Big 12 from top to bottom is probably the deepest in terms of competitive balance. There's a reason why only 2 teams in the last 6-7 years have been able to run the table in the conference standings. It's very rare that you get a 9-0 team in the Big 12. What the SEC does have is a more top heavy league. Alabama, Georgia, and LSU are much more daunting to go through than anybody you're going to see in the Big 12. And that's really where it becomes a challenge. I don't think it's necessarily going to be difficult for Oklahoma and Texas to succeed. What is going to be hard is going to be for them to win the conference, because you're going to have to get past those programs. And I look at, for example, the recruiting ranking. This 2023 class, Oklahoma ranked 4th, Texas ranked 3rd. Guess who ranked in 1 and 2? Alabama and Georgia. So you're 3rd best in the country, or you're 4th best in the country, but you're also 3rd and 4th best in your own conference in recruiting. And that's where it really becomes a slugfest. I think the biggest adjustment that you had to see A&M and Missouri make is line of depth on the line of scrimmage. That's really, I think, where you're going to have to see it. And I see at A&M, I particularly saw defensively, like getting the kind of defensive lineman you need. I don't think the state of Texas produces really big interior linemen at quite the rate that maybe they did 25 years ago. And some of that, I think, can be attributed to the way we play high school football down here now, and maybe how so much of the one back and gun and wide open spread offense has taken hold. But you need some of those really big guys to really stop the run. And I think having some depth on the defensive front is something that takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of effort to recruit.
Yeah, and I asked Dave Aranda this, Sam, last year. Early on, sat down with one of my opportunities, and I asked him, so what is the difference between defensive players in the SEC and what he has seen in the Big 12? Now, that doesn't mean there aren't some dogs, but he mentioned that the kind of athletes that the SEC recruits or get are ones you just let them go. That doesn't mean they're not savvy. It doesn't mean they don't understand watching film and they're not very football IQ. They are high football IQ. But in the Big 12, it's more scheme-oriented. Not that there aren't NFL defensive linemen, but that's what he thinks is the difference in the SEC defense compared to what we have in the Big 12 or what we see in the Big 12.
Yeah, they're just going to line up and try to run you over.
Yeah,
and we're not doing. There are some teams that can do that in the Big 12, but it really, like you said, it's more about out scheming guys. You think of, when I think of defensive football in the Big 12, I think of the influence that Iowa State has had and the 3-3 stack with John Haycock and what they've done. And you see almost every team in the league is now running some variation of that or is incorporating that into their packages. In a similar way, offensively, the Big 12 was kind of the proving ground and the training ground for the offensive explosion that we saw with the air raid. Because Mike Leach really was able to get it to span the Big 12 after he had success with Texas Tech. And it also filtered down to the high schools because we see everybody running or saw everybody running into Texas high schools, and then even made its way up to the NFL. I think there is something to that. And I just do think also, I think just the amount, and not to say that we don't care about football here. Texas obviously is super passionate about football. But I think, I don't know, I just think in the South and the Deep South, it's a little bit different in terms of the kind of guys you get. They're just different. And it's not just getting one or two of them. It's being able to get depth and to be able to roll guys in and out. If you lose your 300-pound 4 or 5-star defensive tackle, you got another one to go plug in there. And that's really, I think, where you see the big difference. And you see it play out in the NFL draft when every April when we have the draft that the SEC ends up having the most draft picks and typically the most linemen.
Sam, you've been doing a series now on The Athletic, Recruiting Rewinds, taking a look at all the Texas schools and just filling out various categories from, the biggest get, the biggest bust, the, best modern era recruit, most influential, so on and so forth. It's been fun to peruse through those. But like the best recruit pre-modern era, is that hard to kind of track down in some cases? Because it's hard to even imagine a time when there wasn't Rivals and 247 and now On 3 and all of that. But I do remember it. It's just, is that the hardest part, or what was the more difficult part trying to, I guess, nail down certain categories here?
Yeah, that's it. It's finding the pre-internet recruits, finding some backstories on those guys, and just trying to contextualize. Pick one guy. Like, for instance, we tried to pick the one that got away for some schools. you may miss a guy that was 40, 50 years ago because it was 40, 50 years ago. I can promise you, I spent a lot of time on newspapers.com in the last month looking through old newspaper rankings and high school stories about recruits. One thing that I did find fascinating about that, by the way, was that when we didn't have recruiting rankings, we didn't have arrivals, we didn't have a 247, or we didn't have an on-3. In the Southwest Conference in Texas, what the newspapers used to do is they used to call up coaches in the Southwest Conference and do an anonymous poll and say, who are your top blue chip recruits? And so you came up with your top 10, your top 15, your top 25 recruits in the state of Texas just by calling all the Southwest Conference coaches and asking them who they were. And I thought, you know what? That's a pretty damn good way to figure out who the best recruit is, because all the coaches that want the guys are the ones who know who the best players are.
Sam, yeah, and you and I did talk, and I then kind of asked a few people for their feedback. Paul Catalina brought up a couple of names that I didn't think about. But the one that's really kind of overlooked at times is how good Odell James was coming out of, Aldine MacArthur, I think it was, one of the schools in Aldine. But he was going to Nebraska. That was like one they really thought with what they did with their offense. And then he ends up going to Baylor, and he got derailed because of injuries. You did some great research of what you did with that article that came out yesterday.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, Odell James was a fascinating story. If we had star rankings back then, Odell James would have been a 5-star. Yep. No doubt about it. Was one of the best recruits in the country. Like you said, went to MacArthur down here in Houston area. And like you said, those knee injuries that he had suffered in his senior season of high school, and then kind of had to battle through that in his freshman year, and then lingered into his sophomore year. And he never really was able to kind of get it going after that because of the injuries. And, of course, later in his career, toward the end, was able to move to defensive back and actually played pretty well and had a nice impact on the program in his last year there. So, but it was fascinating to read. And to me, I love doing these types of stories because you do learn so much about the history of some of these programs and some of the recruits. You know, as you and I were talking, I learned a lot more about Lawrence Elkins than I ever would have known before, going back through the papers in the late 1950s, early 1960s, and what a big star he was coming out of Brownwood. It really helps enrich kind of your knowledge of the sport and the programs and kind of things they've been through. And it's been fascinating to watch. And it's just fun. I am a very big sucker for where are they now recruiting stories and seeing guys, because I think the recruiting process is so fun to watch. I know some fans get tired of it because there's so many ebbs and flows to it, but I've always enjoyed following the stories because there's some really unique storylines that you can really follow, and you can follow these guys from the time they're playing high school ball all the way until, if they're lucky enough, to get to the NFL and have great careers.
Sam, what is more likely to happen by the time we get to Big 12 Media Days on the 12th and 13th in Arlington, that the Big 12, while welcoming 4 new schools on July the 1st officially, will have maybe someone else coming to the conference, or that the Pac-12 media deal is finalized?
Oh, my gosh. Put me on the spot here. I would have to guess by then. I would guess the Pac-12 deal would have to be done by then. I really am still, as much as I know it's been uncertain, and I know that Brett Yormark and the Big 12 officials have been really adamant and aggressive about trying to add to the conference. I still am very much in the I'll believe it when I see it camp of Colorado or somebody actually making a move. I just think it's such a massive move, and it could set off such a chain reaction in conference realignment. And I think ultimately, at the end of the day, I do think the Pac-12 is going to get a deal that they feel is satisfactory. And I think they're going to get it done. Whether it's done before media days, I don't know that either one of those things is going to get done before media days. But if I were to put my money on one, I think I'd put it on the Pac-12.
Sam, thank you very much, buddy. Nice to have you on. Have a great week the rest of the week, and also a great weekend.
Thanks so much. You guys too.
Sam Kahn, theathletic.com, with us on 365 Sports.
So you helped out with the Baylor version, or at least chimed in there?
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to go over that just kind of quickly?
Yeah, we could do that. We'll have Max Olson. He wrote an article on Mike Gundy, earlier in the week, and we'll also discuss the SEC schedule with him as well.
Yeah, so based on what I've seen so far, Sam has done A&M, Houston, Texas Tech, and Baylor.
Yep.
And I think those are the only 4 that they've done so far. So I'd imagine Texas and TCU and perhaps others are coming down the pipeline. But, yeah, it was interesting to see. I mean, best pre-recruit or best recruit pre-internet rankings go with Mike Singletary. I think that's I feel like Baylor's is kind of easy, honestly, in comparison to maybe some others. But
well, he went deep before then and mentioned a couple of guys, but it was like not a part of. But Singletary, the one who's the alpha.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying anything, about his choice, other than I just think for Baylor, like the pre-modern era is simple. It's Mike Singletary, and then to follow that up, the most influential, or even modern recruit.
There's no question.
RG3.
RG3, not only at the time, but also with what's happened because he helped bring that program to a level no one thought is imaginable.
I mean, I think those two are two Mount Rushmore at Baylor guys, and that, you fill out the other two spots, however you want to. But, I mean, that's automatic. The best pre and post, whatever timeline you want to use for the internet era of recruiting. It's pre Mike Singletary, post it's Robert Griffin III. I don't think there's any question or much of a debate there. Best recruit in program history, modern era. Now, this wasn't RG3. He had RG3 as the most influential, but I think he could also apply here. It's just it would get really boring if you just labeled the same guy for everything, because you could fill out like three of them and put RG3. You know what I mean?
Singletary makes sense. Again, it's the pre-internet era.
Right.
And Singletary's the one. Elkins and Don Trull have to be a part of the conversation if you're talking historically. But, yeah, RG3 would be able to be every one of these.
Other than the pre-internet, yeah. But to change it up, best recruit in program history of the modern era, you could say RG3. But KD Cannon, and I still remember exactly where I was when his commit came in. The program was rolling at that time. I mean, camps were a big deal. They were recruiting or starting to recruit really well. They were going to have a great quarterback in every class, and they were going to have really good skill guys in every class. And KD was a high 4, borderline 5-star guy, and, had some connections to the program. I guess Kendall Wright, I guess there would have been some flavor from Kendall Wright because of Pittsburgh and Mount Pleasant, and just sort of they started to carve out that area.
Those schools are all within 25, 30 miles of each other, if not less.
Yeah, so they had some experience in that Northeast Texas area and some ties to Katie there. But I remember when he committed, that was a big deal, and he ended up, bursting onto the scene pretty quickly and had a great run, and has now been playing some semi-pro football. But yeah, I think that he was a pretty huge splash at the time. I don't know anybody else outside of RG3 that you'd go like, oh, that was a bigger recruit.
No, he was a 5-star. RG3 was not, even though he turned out to be 5-star talent and value. KD Cannon, I remember Art Browse telling me this. He went to go watch him play at a game in Mount Pleasant or whoever it was in East Texas. And when he signed with Baylor, he made the comment to us, when he went to go watch him in person for the first time, he was the best receiving talent he had ever seen, as far as in a high school game. Not the biggest, strongest, whatever, but was the best high school wide receiver talent and gift that he had ever seen. And, of course, he played, and he was really good at Baylor.
Yeah, he was. He was tremendous, and just a shame that it ended kind of wishy-washy because he was like, just the timing of it was the end of the Browse era.
He was so tied into that staff, and I think that even though he played, he had a big bowl game against Boise State. You could tell he had pretty much mentally checked out.
Yeah, he had 4 touchdowns. Was that right in that game?
I don't remember who it was. But
do you remember, Jack? The Cactus, was that too young for you, probably? Cactus Bowl. But, yeah, I remember Matt Rule's up in the press box because he had been hired, and he's doing the in-game interview, and there's KD Cannon just going nuts, and he's talking about, like, yeah, I would love to have him, and he didn't get to coach him. But biggest bust, or most important influential RG3, there's not even a question about that. There's a stadium because of RG3. There's a lot of things around here because of RG3.
KD had 14 catches, 226 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Oh, it was only 2?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess it was the yardage number that was like super monstrous. That just really stood out. Biggest bust, Robbie Rhodes. Now, I saw one of his other articles where he labeled somebody, and it was somebody who got hurt, and there's a little bit of pushback because of like, well, I don't know if you call bust if somebody gets hurt, right? Like, is it a little bit too negative to go that route? I guess that's up for debate, but Robbie Rhodes wasn't an injury thing. That's not why he was a bust. He came in 5-star wide receiver and basically got in trouble right away, or got into some trouble pretty much out of the gates, and this never materialized in any way whatsoever.
Hit and miss, and then I'll never forget, I get the call that he had been dismissed from the team. Yeah.
So, he just never caught on, got dismissed after his freshman year, and went on to Bowling Green, got dismissed from there. So, that was definitely a bust that big-time 5-star wide receiver at the time he thought was going to be a star for that offense. Best develop.
I'm sorry. The quote from Bryles on the day that he signed, when we were doing the show inside the indoor, he had just met with boosters, alums, whatever. I said, how quickly can Robbie Rhodes make an impact on your program? He said, as soon as he parks his car on campus.
Yeah. Fortunately, I think he hotboxed in that car a little too many times, and that was the issue. But best developmental story, Xavier Howard. Now, I think you could create a little bit of a argument here, right? Because this was as much slipping through the cracks as it was development. I think there is a case to be made for Jalen Petrie here as best developmental player when you look at the fact that he came in as a 4-star-ish, was a high 3-star type of a guy, and there were definitely people who thought he could play, but I don't know that anybody was expecting the just enormous impact that he would have in so many ways on and off the field, and then obviously a very high second-round draft pick, helped them come out of the absolute mess they were in to win a Big 12 and Sugar Bowl title. So I think he could have a case for best developmental, and I'm sure there's others that were far less along that ended up becoming great players. But Xavier Howard, I look at him as much as I don't think people realize his situation as much as developed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Jason Smith was not a highly recruited player, ended up being the second pick in the NFL draft, All-American. There's others, but Jalen Petrie, always the great story was he ended up, first of all, was great. Mm-hmm. And is playing really well in the NFL, but also the fact that he was the lone guy that still stayed committed to Baylor no matter the coaching change.
Yeah, so he earns a superlative no matter what, but I think he could be on there. And there's probably others too, but Xavier Howard had an incredible career and, little to no offers, and there's a great Phil Bennett story behind why that was. So we can rehash that sometime. But finally, the one that got away, Devin Duvernay, wide receiver, committed. His brother Donovan had committed, and they were set to go, play for the Bears and be in that Bryles offense. And then obviously all hell broke loose, and he ends up decommitting, and both he and his brother end up going to Texas. He had a great career at Texas, has been in the NFL now for a few years and is doing really well for himself. And I know that they thought he was, much the way you were talking about Katie Cannon, Devin Duvernay, like the way he was being talked about back then was like, this was going to be the next Mount Rushmore guy. He's going to be the next Biletnikoff guy.
That was maybe one of the highest rated classes they ever had. They were coming off a great stretch. And then, as you said, the scandal, all hell broke loose. Mm-hmm. They lost half the class. And he was one of the first ones after there was so much pressure to let him out of their scholarships. And when he left, man, the floodgates opened up.
That one, and then Stidham leaving too was.
Stidham decided to not play.
Yeah, that was pretty much a dagger to the heart of the fan base.
Remember Hudson, the offensive
Patrick
lineman?
Hudson. That one, but see, there were some of those guys.
But he didn't have play. He got hurt too much. He was ended his career, right?
Yeah, he had to retire early medically. There was others that went on to various places and didn't really do much, if anything, so you didn't really worry about it. After, it was funny because initially you're like, man, all these guys and a bunch of them were 4-stars. There's Cam Martin ended up going to Auburn. Yep. You had Donovan Steiner, I think, ended up at Florida. You had obviously Duvernay, Patrick Hudson. Urquidez was Texas really picked apart that class in the aftermath of that. But yeah, Devin was the one. Like all the other guys went their step. Baron Browning was, I think, the following year and was only committed. He didn't sign, so that didn't count the same. But of the guys that signed in that 2016 class, I think that eventually all got released. Some of them were fine, but you never really. It was no sweat off the back, really. But Devin Duvernay was the one that you did see constantly, and you're like, damn, like that guy was supposed to be here, and we're supposed to be watching him, and dang, he's really good. He's as good as advertised. And like I said, he's been in the league for a while now, or for 3 years, 3 years now at this point. So yeah, definitely a one who got away. So yeah, pretty spot on. I think you could probably quibble minor, over a couple of them, but I think that they did a great job, and it's fun to look at. And there's various other schools they've hit up as well that you can pour through. So fun off-season read for sure from Sam Kahn.
I just went to 2016, and there's names in there like Bravion Roy now, who he's in the NFL. Yep. Denzel Mims. They had to work on the fly, and that class was basically destroyed because of that. But Urquidez is the one that a lot of Baylor fans weren't real happy with because he made some comments. His father made a couple of comments about Baylor. Parrish Cobb would have been a part of that class, ends up going to Oklahoma. Now he's in prison or went to prison. High-level name. Cam Martin has a tattoo still, perhaps even to this day, with Baylor.
No, it doesn't.
He
got that covered up
Good.
Shortly afterwards.
And I wanted to cover him because he was such a great personality and a phenomenal interview.
Well, he's a rising assistant coach now. I think I don't know what staff he's on at this point, but I know he's been moving up the coaching tree here as of late since graduating from Auburn. But yeah, he had the big BU tattoo that he showed up at a camp with, and I remember standing right there and him showing it to Art Prowse and to some of the coaches, and you never would have thought right then how that bubble was how badly that was going to burst, that whole scene just a few months later. But no, I remember reading that he got it covered up pretty quickly after that. I'm not sure with what, but yeah, that class got ripped apart, and Devin Duvernay certainly was the brightest of the bunch as far as impact made at the college level and now the NFL as well. So he applies.
Yeah, excuse me. One of the things Kim Coulter was trying to ask about RG3, he was at Houston. He committed to Art Briles at Houston, and then Briles took the job at Baylor, and RG3 came with him. Imagine how things changed there with Baylor football history, much less what it would have been with Briles having RG3 in that offense at Houston.
Well, that's Houston's got away one. I think on their article that's the one that got away was RG3 since he was committed, yeah.
All right, when we come back, we'll hear from Max Olson, theathletic.com. This is 365 Sports.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
At
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Max Olson, theathletic.com. Sam Kahn earlier with his article on a series on recruiting, plus also the SEC, and we'll have quite a bit of that with Max, plus his story on Mike Gundy. Max, thank you. It's Craig and me. Today, Paul got married yesterday. Did you know that?
Did not get that invite, but congrats to Paul. That's fantastic.
It would have been expensive. It's in Hawaii. And so a nice little small group that was in Hawaii. And congratulations again to Paul and Amanda. Max, let's start with the SEC. What was your take, your thoughts, Texas, OU, the A&M, Arkansas, all these, your thoughts about UT and Oklahoma and their first year in the SEC in 24?
Yeah, I mean, it's beginning to feel very real. I thought the schedule release was very interesting. I think they overall did a pretty good job of balancing everything out. And, it is crazy when you start to look at some of these schedules. Like I just saw a post pointing out that, that Kirby Smart and Georgia, I think they're playing Clemson as well in 24, in addition to I think to some pretty big time challenges here. Like I think Texas has got, I think Texas ended up with probably a pretty favorable schedule overall. You kind of knew they were going to end up playing in College Station, obviously, for the first year of that. But a lot of SEC East on their schedule, which is interesting. And then, I think Oklahoma, like you look at that schedule and what they're up against, and man, got to make really big strides this year. And year 2 under Brent Venables, because this job is about to get a lot more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, their schedule: Tennessee, LSU, Alabama, all on the same slate. Auburn, Ole Miss. I mean, and obviously there's some mystery, like how good is Hugh Freeze in Auburn, and how quickly, and where's South Carolina post Spencer Rattler and all that. But it's like you wanted it, you got it, and how much transition time do you think these teams need, Max? A&M slipped into the SEC pretty quickly and had Johnny Mania. Missouri won the East and was in the title game pretty quickly, and obviously things have varied since then. But are you expecting like a transitional period, or do you think both these programs can kind of jump into the deep end right away?
Yeah, and I should have added, man, that A&M schedule sets up pretty well. Same deal there, honestly. If Jimbo Fisher can win enough games this year and get that thing on the right track, like I think you kind of like how that one turned out for them. Other than they've got a tough one with Notre Dame in non-conference, but I think it's going to be a challenge. I do, and I'm not going to sit here and say Oklahoma and Texas are doomed to winning 7-8 games a year in the SEC. Like I think they will rise to the level of the competition over time, and I think that SEC status is going to help them overall in recruiting. I think it already is. But man, you just have to especially like at the line of scrimmage and stuff like that. And that's one area where like they do recruit at a high level, but like ultimately I think developmentally it's probably going to be a little bit eye opening. O-line, D-line, some of those spots when you just week to week, what you see in the SEC with really, really highly ranked guys on the other side of the field. And, there's just not as many like weeks where you feel like you've got a huge edge over your opponent from a recruiting standpoint, like you kind of do in the Big 12. So, I think that it's going to take time, and certainly for both of those programs, it's going to take stability with the coaching staff to be able to build something.
Max, they have that algorithm, whatever they did to ensure the rivalries and also then the schedule. Alabama's playing Georgia in 24. Do you feel like this is kind of, I guess it's a little bit like, wait a minute, they've played 5 times in the regular season in the last 20 years. Do you feel like that all of a sudden popped up the ping pong ball because the college football playoff expansion starts in 2024. So, hey, let's let them play each other. It won't hurt if they lose.
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, we all have to just understand that when you go to a 12-team playoff, there's going to be 9 and 3 SEC teams that make the playoff, right? We just know that. So it's okay to have tougher schedules from that standpoint. And I do think it's going to be a little bit weird, where when you go away from divisions. I mean, I know other leagues have done it in recent years, but I think it is going to feel a little bit more strange with the SEC to really be tracking that 1 versus 2 in that league and no divisional standings, because we're just so used to, okay, in the East, it's going to be Georgia or Florida, or Tennessee, and, in the West, it's probably going to be Alabama or LSU, or maybe somebody rises up. And so I think when you eliminate that, it's going to make for a little bit more random schedules, obviously, but it's also going to that race for the top is going to be, I think, really, really interesting, and makes a lot more games matter, I think, in the SEC race. But it also makes it okay to have some of those games that maybe you would save for Atlanta and do them in the regular season, because ultimately, if you're the SEC, if you're Greg Sankey, you feel pretty good that your 4 best teams in the SEC are probably going to make the playoffs.
Max, on a yearly basis around November, inevitably there's an article or a conversation about, what we're missing out on with Texas and Texas A&M. And now after all these years, we're finally going to see it again. I can only imagine what type of atmosphere there will be in College Station, but on your anticipation level and just things we've seen recently in college football, where does that rank, the fact that we're going to get to see that resumed and, now as a conference game, where does that rank amongst kind of your highest anticipation levels for certain college football games?
Yeah, I think if I could put in the credential request for that today, I would. Certainly I think a lot of people are going to be fighting to be in that press box that night. And, honestly, when you look at that game, and just the hatred that is built up from not playing each other over this decade and kind of constantly looking over the fence and comparing where you're at to where they're at, stuff like that. Part of me, not only am I excited for that game, but you kind of hope both of them are really good. You kind of hope that both of them are playing in a game that really matters, and it's not just one of them's 5-7. This doesn't really matter to anybody. I think it's. I think it'd be awesome if that is a game that is at the end of the season and has real stakes and has maybe one or both of them, trying to get into that expanded playoff.
Max, you wrote a long feature in depth with Mike Gundy, and I know last year the season kind of just fell apart. They had injuries. It seemed like there was also, I don't know what, inside the locker room. What did you learn from him?
It's funny. I got to sit down with Mike Gundy in late April for more than an hour in his office, and I think people would read the quotes and see, him speaking very candidly and being maybe some of them read a little bit defensive and he's cursing and some of them something like that. I'm sure somebody probably could read this and be like, "Man, Gundy is real cranky," but no, he was in a great mood. He just is, I think, at a point in his career as he approaches, 20 years of being a head coach almost. I think that Mike Gundy's at the point now, and he's said it a few times in our conversation, where he kind of doesn't care anymore. He kind of doesn't care what people think. He's going to say what's on his mind. He's going to say what he really thinks about what's going on. And, he's just not somebody at this point in his career who's going to do a whole lot of changing. I think that as much as I think he's intrigued enough by the challenges of the job, and the job has felt more challenging to him than ever before, even with how successful they've been. He's intrigued by enough of the challenges that he wants to keep doing it. He doesn't really, foresee retiring anytime soon. But certainly they went through a lot of challenges, whether it's injuries and on-field and leadership and stuff like that last year. And then at the end of the season, he was genuinely really shocked by some of the players that went in the portal, really didn't see it coming, and they've really had to kind of adjust their messaging and their recruiting a little bit in terms of the players they're bringing into their program. And, I think that his take on it is not, you would expect usually for coaches to be pretty introspective and say, I realize now there's a few things we've been doing wrong and we've got to fix it and stuff. Mike Gundy wants to double down and say, the culture is good here. The staff is good here. I don't fire coaches. We've got to fine tune things a little bit, but ultimately the Cowboy culture, as he calls it, is exactly what he wants it to be. And he's just got to find the right kind of players and try to be successful. But This is a guy that, as you know, that's kind of what we wrote about. The college football has changed so much. You know, will he kind of change with it in order to kind of keep them in contention in the Big 12 and the playoff and all that stuff? I think the next few years are going to be very interesting for him as he adjusts to the portal and NIL and all these things that have made it really a lot tougher to sustain success.
And he is not going to change, as you pointed out. I mean, he basically is daring somebody to fire him if they want him to do it a different way, right? I mean, he's not hiding the fact that he understands that's a consequence that could come, but he's still going to do it his own way regardless.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly at the point now where he's made a lot of money, and I think he's I think he's proud of he did it his way and has won more than 150 games there by doing it his way. And I don't think he's inflexible, but and he said he had to hire a new DC this offseason, Brian Nardo. They had to go find a new quarterback. Like there's obviously a lot of change within their program going on this offseason. But certainly, yeah, Mike Gundy is going to keep kind of saying what he thinks and not really hold back like he did in our conversation. And he has a good relationship with his AD and his president. I don't think he's on the hot seat by any means. I think they really value what he brings to that program and that community and the continuity and success that they've had for a very long period of time. I mean, this is one of only two programs in the country that has had 17 consecutive seasons of a winning record in a bowl game. They value him, but at the same time, Mike Gundy, I think, is at that point where he's just safe enough that he feels like he can kind of say whatever he wants, and he certainly in doing this job and moving forward, he's going to do things exactly the way he wants.
You mentioned that he was kind of caught off guard by a lot of the players who entered the portal. There were rumblings that there was turmoil, etc. Did he ever admit what really happened? And you said they're changing their philosophy and maybe they go about how they go about their business. Did he ever actually say anything about what actually happened?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like the argument he kind of made is that, look, this is a program basically full of men and they're not always going to get along, and that kind of comes with it sometimes. And, usually he certainly stood by his coaches. He stood by Casey Dunn, his offensive coordinator, and didn't make a change there, even though Oklahoma State obviously lost a lot of receivers this offseason and stuff like that. I think he feels like their player leadership maybe wasn't quite what he hoped it would be last year. Obviously, there's a really veteran team in 2021 that played for a Big 12 title and won 12 games. And so you lost some really good seniors off that team, and it's kind of hard to fill the gap there a little bit. And I think he just felt like, there were some guys in their program like John Paul Richardson, who they love, who he's their kind of guy in every way, a 3-star guy that they took when A&M and others wouldn't and stuff. They made him a captain as a sophomore and stuff, and he ended up going in the portal over playing time basically. And they're just kind of like, well, what are you supposed to do? Like, you coach them hard. We're going to kind of stick to our guns here and how we do things. Coach them hard and try to build good relationships with them and their parents and stuff like that. But you still may end up losing them to the portal. And they feel like that's just the reality of how it is nowadays. They're not going to get into bidding wars with anybody over players that are threatening to go in the portal or anything like that. I think he just feels like, I've just got to defend the culture here and, find guys that really want to be here for the right reasons and want to be coached hard.
So we've got Big 12 Media Days in about a month, and we got the email about starting to vote on the preseason team. And I just went in there just for the heck of it and started filling out some of the names that I know I'm going to have on there and started to kind of look into a little bit more of some other teams. And obviously you have the new 4 schools that create, a new issue.
Hey, who's our QB1 in that? Is it Jalen Daniels? Like, who's it going to be this year in the preseason?
I've got 4 spots that I have not filled out, and that's one of them. And I think I've heard mostly from just people here that I've asked. They went Jalen Daniels, but obviously, you could go, I guess, Quinn Ewers in theory. But, I mean, Daniels seems like probably the guy who's proven the most at this point. But I don't know. That's part of the questions, I think.
How many people...
Sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're good.
How many people will get caught up in the Quinn Ewers at least the second year around over Jalen Daniels at Kansas?
I would guess. I mean, that's obviously the Big 12 preseason one it's all voted on by media who cover the conference. I would guess a lot of people will write in Ewers without even thinking about it. Yeah, you're probably right about that.
Yeah, I think that's probably the case too. But yeah, Daniels definitely, if he gets the nod, I would be totally fine with that, and it would be deserved. But it was weird because you have to start. I was like, oh man, I don't have anybody from BYU or Cincinnati on here. I got to get UCF on here somewhere. But then I was like, what do I do about I did not know what to think about Oklahoma State, just in general, much less individual players. After your conversation with Gundy, where do you see them kind of fitting in? Do you have any sort of a great feel on? They've made changes, obviously, but where do you see them in the pecking order for a team that was, an inch away from winning the conference just a couple years ago?
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, have they lost too many good players to the portal, and, like, how do you replace those guys? I actually think they got some pretty good ones out of the portal in this cycle to replace each of those guys. I think the Alan Bowman addition from Michigan, I think, is going to be really interesting, and offensively, I think they're going to go in a little bit of more of a different direction. I think you're actually going to see them try to pound the rock more and try to go under center a little bit more, which we haven't seen from there in a super long time. They still got some good players. I think Brennan Presley's setting up for a really big year at receiver. And Colin Oliver, the linebacker, he's got to adjust to playing in a three-man front there. But I think, certainly one of the more talented pass rushers in the conference. Like, there's some guys still there that I think would be kind of in that all-conference consideration. But, what do I expect from them? I mean, like, I think that they're probably going to end up like they were last year. Like, you're probably just going to end up playing a lot of close games. I mean, that's just kind of that's just life in the Big 12. And I think that, they've got to be a lot better on the offensive line. They need to develop a run game. The running backs averaged 90 rushing yards a game last year, which ranked 119th in the country. Like, they just could not run the ball. And so then when you have injuries at quarterback, it really becomes clear they have a hard time moving the ball without Spencer Sanders last year. Defensively, with Brian Nardo coming over from Division II, like, it's going to be very interesting to see that they're trying to implement the Iowa State defense. I think they do, to some degree, have the personnel for that. But how easily does that click, and how many busts do you have with that stuff? Like, I think they're a team that, if they hit on a bunch of these transfers, will be in the conference race. But, to sit here and say they're going to win like 10 games, like, that would be surprising.
Max, I asked Sam Kahn this question. So we're at Big 12 Media Days, July, whatever it is, 11th or 12th, right? What will be what is more likely to be the case? The Pac-12 has a new deal, or the Big 12 welcoming in 4 new teams, and also the fact there might be somebody else in the future?
Like we have a big Coach Prime introduction at Big 12 Media Days.
Yeah,
you think is that on the table here?
I think he'll be on a cruise ship somewhere when that's going on. But yeah, you get what I'm asking.
I think that based on the misery I've gone through and having to cover this little realignment phase since the beginning of the year, or since last July, I think that cynically there's a part of me that's like, I wonder if the Pac-12 deal will even be done by the time Pac-12 Media Days happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Man, I feel like they have to get something done here by the end of the month. But that's not really based on like great intel at this point on the Pac-12 side. It's been very quiet, and certainly they need to. I think it would benefit everybody if they told San Diego State what they were doing by the end of the month here in terms of the buyout for San Diego State. But if this thing drags into July, I think we're already kind of sick and tired of waiting for that thing to be wrapped up. So would be very interesting, and probably would be a lot of tension if that were the case. So I don't know, guys. I wish I knew with certainty. End of June is the deadline on the Pac-12, and with Colorado and Arizona. But sitting here today, it's really hard to tell.
Max, how old is your daughter?
I don't have a daughter.
I mean, your child. I'm sorry. I said
sorry. My son.
Your son.
He's 2.
Okay,
He's 2.
So you've had a Father's Day. Will this be the second or third Father's Day with him?
This is my second Father's Day.
So what does it mean to you that first one last year, but having that
my
Father's
second
Day?
Or my third? I guess it would be this is my third. Yeah.
Well, the fact that you have that little one looking back up to you on Father's Day.
Yeah. Oh, it's the absolute best. I think obviously like we all work very hard in our jobs and this career, and it can be a grind nonstop and stuff like that. But it's been really great over the past couple of years here to try to have a better work-life balance and put him first and stuff like that. And he's been tremendous. Just a super fun kid who really really brightens our day, and that's my CNF. Yeah, it's looking forward to Father's Day, and it's been a fun journey so far.
Thank you, Max. Appreciate your time as always. Max Olson, theathletic.com, with us on 365 Sports. We'll have Ross Dellinger, SI.com. He'll join us next. This is 365 Sports. We appreciate your time. Don't forget tonight at 10:30 on the CW, 365 Sports tonight. Pioneer Steel and Pipe. 1943, they opened their doors, and here we are in 2023, and they are rolling. Back in December, they moved into their brand new facility, which is on the east side of I-35 on what is Loop 340 and also Highway 6. They had great product. They have great customer service. That's a big deal to them. You can hear it, and sometimes that might be what someone says, but do they back it up? They do. But now they got bigger, better, faster, and stronger, more space, more room, more product. Their showroom is 2,500 square feet with 1,000 new products. And a lot of what they also have is new lengths of what they have. Steel, pipe, metal, tubing, etc. Used to be maybe one or two different lengths, and then you'd have to go get it cut yourself or get somebody else to do it. Now it's cut for you. That also means you could take it straight to wherever you are, real estate or commercial, when you're building something. A metal building, whatever you're building. And on top of that, their distribution, which has always been really good, is now more efficient than ever before. And that's saying a lot because they were elite. It's Pioneer Steel and Pipe, Loop 340, Highway 6, just off the east side of 35 in Waco, pioneerboys.com.
The future's bright, the time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak and Craig Smoak.
Just a note that both Ricky Fowler and also, just went blank, shot 62 today. Xander Schauffele, 62 today in the opening round of the Open. We'll have a leaderboard a little bit more wide open than that in the 5 o'clock hour. Ross Dellinger, SI.com, has been with us a lot. We always appreciate his time. Covers college athletics, college football, and more. Ross, thank you very much for your time. So your thoughts on the SEC schedule release? Anything in particular pop up to you? Looks like we've got some great matchups, traditional games, but also some new ones.
Yeah, I think they did a pretty good job of creating, balance in the schedule while also kind of preserving long-time rivalries. And certainly going to be a big year in 24. You got USC and UCLA joining the Big Ten, and Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC, and you'll have some really awesome matchups. You see some of these Texas and Oklahoma games that are, scheduled. I think you got Alabama will visit Oklahoma. It's pretty exciting, and you got Texas and Texas A&M, right, restarting their old rivalry. Those are some fun matchups, and then you look at some of the annual games that the SEC preserved, like obviously the Egg Bowl, Ole Miss and Mississippi State, and in Alabama, Auburn, and they preserved Auburn, Georgia, and Tennessee, Alabama as well. So should be an exciting year in 24. Not only do you have the SEC and Big Ten expanding, but you have the expansion of the college football playoff as well.
Speaking of that, Georgia, Alabama have played 5 times in 20 years, at least during a regular season game. We know what their history is in the postseason. All of a sudden, they're a part of that 24 schedule. I saw Mike, I think it's Kodak, and I saw you like that in your Twitter timeline. Saban, they're giving us Alabama, Auburn, and I'm missing somebody. And I don't know, LSU, whatever it is. No, Auburn and Tennessee. Who did I miss here? Dang it, I had it right in front of me, Ross. Nick Saban.
You talking about Alabama's schedule? I think it's LSU, Georgia, Auburn, and Tennessee.
Yeah, it was. They're giving us Tennessee, Auburn, and LSU, and then the SEC. You're right, but also let's add in Georgia to the mix. That Saban had to love that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I sat down with Nick Saban in March. That discussion was about a 9-game SEC schedule, and there was a lot of drama on, the SEC scheduling model in a 9-game schedule is going to be 3 permanent opponents and 6 rotational opponents. And there's a lot of talk about what teams would get what permanent opponents. And Nick Saban divulged in the interview with me that Alabama was going to get Tennessee, LSU, and Auburn. I said permanent opponents in a 9-game schedule. However, the SEC didn't go with the 9-game schedule. They'll at least play 8 games in 2024. I think they'll eventually go to a 9-game schedule. But yes, Nick Saban was complaining about the 3 permanent opponents that they would get in a 9-game schedule, and lo and behold, they get those opponents in the 8-game schedule plus Georgia. So I don't know if we've heard Nick Saban weigh in yet, but I would imagine that he's not thrilled, But look, any schedule in the SEC, especially with Texas and Oklahoma joining, it's going to have its hurdles. And I think for years now, Alabama, has gotten the benefits of certain things. Now maybe you're gonna have to cross some hurdles in the leagues. So, but it'll be interesting to see Nick Saban's reaction.
Ross, I didn't realize this. I saw somebody bring this up when the schedule was released for Florida, but Florida and Auburn have only played one time since 2002. How is that possible outside of is there anything other than just that's the way the schedule's fallen for the last 20 years for why those two have not played more than once?
Yeah, well, that's a big problem with the SEC's divisional and schedule model in years past, is that you went so long without teams playing one another. You mentioned that, I think Smokey mentioned Alabama and Georgia, and there's, as you mentioned, Florida and Auburn, and there's plenty more. I think Georgia has never played at Texas A&M and won't even through 2024. So that's the issue, and that's why the 9-game schedule is so important. I think the SEC's format for a 9-game schedule would allow each team to play every other team at least once every 2 years, and then once at home every 4 years. And so that's, I think, the future model that they'll go to. And even with an 8-game schedule, if they do decide to do that way, they would have one permanent opponent and 7 rotational, and everybody would be able to see every other team every other year. And so I think that's kind of the way of the future, this divisionless type of format where everybody will be able to play one another a little more often.
Ross, you were all in the summit last week in D.C., the NIL comments and the IRS and all that, and I know you had a visit with Charlie Baker. What is your take on the announcement or the, I guess, discussion about tax exempt or not? Charlie Baker seems to believe that should be the case, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's fairly significant news. Last Friday, the IRS finally weighed in on nonprofit NIL collectives who advertise that they will basically give tax deductions on donations for NIL. And I think the IRS last Friday basically made it clear that they don't believe those donations should be tax deductible, which many around the country knew or expected to happen at some point. And it happened. And I was able last couple of days spent in Orlando at an athletic director summit where Charlie Baker spoke, and he agrees certainly with the IRS that those donations should not be tax deductible. It'll be interesting to see how this evolves, and if nonprofit NIL collectives will continue to potentially risk penalties from the IRS, or if they'll stop. I've heard a few have paused kind of or slowed their operations, or those who are new ones who are popping up have stopped or slowed progress. So it'll be interesting to see how they'll handle this.
But to be clear, Ross, if I read it correctly, and that's why, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was like an opinion from the IRS, right? Like there's no fear that they're going to like tomorrow, like, hey, we're going to start, going at folks. Like that was merely like, we agree this shouldn't be this way. But as of now, there's not any legislation barring that, is there?
Well, no, there's not. And you're right. It was a memo that basically, it was from the office of chief counsel of the IRS saying that they believe that this is not tax deductible. And I don't know what happens next. Nobody seems to be quite clear what happens next. Some believe that, the IRS might take it a step further, and you might see some penalties charged against those donations that were made in the past. Others maybe seem to think that just those in the future will be penalized if they're deductible. But I guess we won't really know until there's a firmer, probably, statement from the IRS, or when tax season rolls around, you just start seeing this happen.
Do you think anything came out of that D.C. summit, the one that there were a lot of personalities, big names there, obviously Baker? Was that anything new, in your opinion, as far as momentum for the NCAA?
Not really. It was a busy week up here last week. You had the SEC leaders were on the Hill. You had the SEC on the Hill. All the coaches, or a lot of the coaches, and a lot of the athletic directors, and even some of the school presidents came to D.C. To visit their lawmakers and lobby for federal legislation, including Nick Saban. And then you're talking about what happened the next day, which was a summit kind of hosted by Arizona in D.C. and had speakers and panels and to discuss the issue of NIL. I don't know that there was anything groundbreaking that happened based off of it. You had a lot more conversation on it. There were a lot more, big leaders involved. Greg Sankey was involved in that summit, and so was Charlie Baker. The problem is, there's a lot of problems in getting legislation through Congress, but the Democrats and Republicans don't agree on NIL legislation and what it should look like. And the Democrats control one part of Congress, and the Republicans control the other. And it just makes it really hard to get legislation through. And on top of all that, you have got a lot more important things probably going on in the country than this. And so I think a lot of people would be pretty surprised if you actually had a bill passed by the end of the year, which is what Charlie Baker and others have put as a deadline, because once the presidential election season arrives, congressional action crawls to a stop.
Last things, Ross, what were your thoughts when the story yesterday came out that Texas Tech would honor Mike Leach? Finally, of course, he's gone, and we know how that ended in Lubbock. Yeah,
it didn't end real well. We were talking about this on our podcast earlier today, me and Dan Wetzel and Pat Forty, and we talked about the question was, would Mike Leach be happy about this if he were still around? And I'm not so sure. I think that Mike Leach believed that he was owed money by Texas Tech, and I think I don't know that he would have accepted the honor or attended or whatnot. It is interesting. It's a nice gesture, obviously, by Texas Tech, but certainly Mike Leach, he passed on with a pretty significant chip on the shoulder when it comes to the situation at Tech. So it's all very, very interesting situation. You wonder what the Leach family thinks, because I know just talking to people close to Mike Leach that he was still pretty angry and frustrated to the very end at what happened at Texas Tech, and they were too.
Glad you're feeling better, Ross. Great to have you on the show. Thank you.
All right, guys.
Ross Dellinger, SI.com, with us on 365 Sports. So the last hour, Sam Kahn, Max Olson, Ross Dellinger. Jalen Bridges will join us at the top of the 5 o'clock hour. Craig Smoak, and Off the Radar, it's next. This is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas. My dentist, Dr. Steve Childress. I have an appointment coming up July the 6th. In the days, for many years, too many years, I used to sit there and I had to the dentist office would call me. We haven't seen you in a while. We'd like for you to come in. And I wish it would have been as simple as just getting a teeth cleaning. But I didn't take care of my dental work well enough. I didn't. And then when you don't take care of it, you damn sure don't want to go to a dentist because you know you're going to get some bad news or needles in your jaw or the roof of your mouth. I've been there quite a bit. But lately, the last 2 or 3 years, really since we started this show, Dr. Childress had asked me to come see him, and I did even during the COVID time, and he really gave me a come to Jesus, and it's worked. Doesn't mean I won't have some issues because of issues I kind of created myself. I'll see him July the 6th. He fixed something that was a cracked tooth in my back right lower jaw. He was phenomenal. He is incredible, and that business is efficient as you can possibly imagine. From the time you walk through the front door to the time you go back to either someone who's an hygienist, an assistant, or one of the dentists. They are great. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Price right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
All right, welcome into Off the Radar here on 365 Sports. Do this Tuesdays, Thursdays around 4:45. A little pocket of time to take a look at some stories around the world of sports. Sometimes we'll dip into the entertainment side as it warrants. Sometimes we'll stick around college football. Just all depends on the day. And got to be honest with you, here in these now very much dog days of summer, at least that's how it feels outside. You know that the field right now is like 111 because of the humidity
outside,
and the temperature.
I can imagine, and I can see that some. Thank God we're behind these large black windows that shields the sun from coming in here too much. But I felt it today, like from the time I woke up until I walked in the door here.
Yeah, it feels like 111 right at the moment. So it very much feels like summer now. And with that, there's not a lot of these games are on tonight, and it's Major League Baseball basically. Like that's what we've got on the docket on a daily basis, and beyond that, sprinklings of other things. But part of the reason why we're narrowed down in our selections is because both the NHL and the NBA championships wrapped up over the last few days. Of course, the Las Vegas Golden Knights taking home the Stanley Cup, and meanwhile the Denver Nuggets winning the NBA championship in 5 games. And they had their parade today. They celebrated with their parade today, and Nuggets head coach Michael Malone, it was very strange because after the championship win the other night, he's in the post game and he's like not wasting any time. He's already talking about next year. He's talking about how loaded they're still going to be, the fact that Jokic and Murray and all these guys are under contract for the foreseeable future. And I don't know, like I love the enthusiasm and get fired up, but it's also like, man, you might want to just enjoy this moment, just for a little while.
Yep.
But he's doubling down. He's at the parade and he probably had a couple of brews, I would imagine, at some point in time. But he's saying, we're not done yet. We're some greedy bastards, baby. We're some greedy bastards. We're getting another one. So there was Michael Malone just further amping up the expectations days removed from their first title for their pursuit of title number 2. And what was a pretty funny moment was, I don't know how much you caught of Nikola Jokic and his feelings on the parade.
Yeah,
did you happen to catch any of that?
Yeah, I did. Like he goes, it's time for me to go home.
Yeah. I mean, he's turned into this character now where people wonder how much he even cares about basketball beyond just the love of the game itself. But as far as the whole being a pro athlete and everything that comes with that, he clearly has no desire to be on a bunch of commercials or to be on camera all the time. I mean, he had this feeling of just wanting to go celebrate with his teammates the other night. And then when, told about the parade that he would have to stick around about another 3 days for, he was not very happy with that. But it's amazing what a little celebration will do, because apparently at the parade today, he was all about it. He said he was all about the parade. He said, initially he wanted to get back home to Europe because of horse racing. And he was, upset that he was going to have to, stay around for this parade. But he is all about it. And apparently today he was talking about, I love blanking parade, and it totally reversed course. So I'm sure there were some brews that did make their way into changing his decision. But it was funny to see that because, he was so anti the whole thing the other night, and apparently he was just having the time of his life. Although his wife apparently got dinged with a beer can in the noggin at one point or another, but I think she's okay.
Full.
Yeah, but it was just funny to see his flip. Probably feel a little bit of a buzz. But the Nuggets did celebrate their championship today in the streets of the Mile High City, and Jokic was probably as enthusiastic as anybody to be a part of that, so good to see. Now, I did make mention of the fact that there are not as many sports going on right now, but tomorrow we will get a little bit more baseball outside of just MLB, as it will be the return of the College World Series in Omaha out at Charles Schwab Field. That'll get underway tomorrow, a pair of games with a 1 p.m. start time, kicking things off between TCU and Oral Roberts. And then in the nightcap at 6 p.m., it'll be Virginia taking on Florida. And that will be your pair of games tomorrow. Then on Saturday, you will have Wake Forest and Stanford's Game 1 and LSU and Tennessee's Game 1. And this will obviously go over the next few days all the way to a national champion being crowned next Thursday, next weekend, They'll have the final series between whoever emerges 2 teams wise from this bracket. But there's your bracket 1 and bracket 2, TCU, Oral Roberts, Florida, Virginia, and then bracket 2, Wake Forest, Stanford, LSU, Tennessee, and that'll tide us over for about another week for a college baseball national champion.
I'm looking forward to it. I have not really watched much of Wake Forest, but what I have watched, they're obviously good. I know LSU's just a hammer with what they have. Good luck to TCU as they head up. They've had, as you mentioned, a great run this year in athletics. And Stanford coming in after the back and forth momentum shifts with Texas. And you wonder how much that vaults them into the World Series. But obviously they've got, with Wake Forest first in line, that would be a great win to try to get them on the right side of that.
Yep, so that'll be getting underway, like I said, tomorrow afternoon. Just something to look forward to college athletics-wise as everything else has wound down. There's like some individual track stuff, but beyond that, I mean, it's just college baseball left standing. Everybody else has pretty much shuttered their doors for summertime at this point. We're talking about the SEC schedule, and I brought up the Florida-Auburn thing. Ross countered with, not countered, but he brought up the often talked about point about Georgia and Texas A&M, and it really is bizarre. Those teams have played 6 times in their history. Not once has it been as SEC teams, which everybody knows, and not once has it occurred since 2009. So it's been not 20 years, it's not been forever and ever, but it's been quite a while since those two teams tangled, and you got to go all the way back to 1980 to get the other most recent matchup. So that's kind of well known, the fact that those two have not tangled as SEC opponents. But did you realize what I said about Florida and Auburn?
No.
That they have not played but one frickin' time since 2002?
No matter the scheduling, no matter the rotation, no matter how they come up with it, you just can't do that. There has to be somebody that's in this room that goes, wait a minute, this is stupid. That like Georgia and A&M or whatever, this is dumb.
Okay.
We got to change it up or erase some other games to make sure at least there's everybody's played everybody somewhat randomly.
Yeah, and I need to correct this. Not 2002, 2011. That's my fault because the shading on the chart here, it's almost impossible to see Auburn's navy blue against the black drop. So now that I'm focusing, so 2011 they played, and then they played, gosh, orange pops off well. I guess 06, 07. So they played 3 times since 2000, but that's 3 times since in 21 years that they played. Florida and Auburn or 4 times. That doesn't seem like enough. So that's one thing that I still feel needs to be addressed with this SEC schedule, and that's just kind of a weird deal. Meanwhile, speaking of Florida, the real reason why I brought them up, we're talking about all these difficult schedules. I don't know if you saw Dan Orlovsky, who does a really good job covering the NFL on ESPN, but he had a tweet earlier today highlighting Florida's schedule, and he said, this may be the hardest college football schedule I've ever seen. And we don't have dates, so we don't know how exactly this is going to line up. But have you seen Florida's schedule? Do you know who they play?
I glanced at it because not this tweet, but I've seen a couple of others go, good luck.
So they play Kentucky and LSU and Ole Miss and Texas A&M. All at home, so that can be very difficult. But that's 4 pretty dang good teams. They play Georgia neutral site, and then their road games are at Tennessee, at Texas, and at Mississippi State. So that's pretty brutal, right? I mean, that's a pretty tough schedule.
Yep.
I mean, LSU's very good. Typically, Kentucky's better than they've really ever been. Ole Miss is dangerous, just depending on the occasion. A&M, I mean, who knows, but you lean towards probably better than bad, right? Georgia, obviously neutral, at Tennessee, at Texas, at Mississippi State. But what really sets this off is that seems tough enough, for Billy Napier and company.
I know one of the non-conference games.
But they're 4 non-conference games. That's too many. Come on. That's 4 of your 12 games are non-conference. I just think that's silly, but
it's 1/3 of your schedule.
Yeah, I mean, what are we doing here? But they play Samford, so that's okay. That's fine. But their other 3 non-conference games, and again, we don't know dates, but it doesn't really matter here. Miami, UCF, both of those games will be at home, and at Florida State. So 24 Florida schedule, Miami, UCF, and FSU, all non-con games. And then the SEC part that I mentioned with Georgia and road trips to Knoxville and Austin and Starkville and LSU at home. And that is I don't know if that's the hardest schedule ever like Dan Orlovsky proposed, but I hadn't really highlighted them, and just bogged down on them, and then I saw that and I was like, holy cow, I didn't realize they had that non-conference schedule of UCF, FSU, and Miami. So Billy Napier, buckle up, buddy. Be very interesting to see what they do this year. because the heat's going to be turned up even greater in 2024.
They played Florida, Miami and Florida back in 2019. Florida won. They played 6 years prior to that. Miami won. But there was a stretch where Miami was beating the living crap out of them so often. In fact, I think 11 or 12 of 15 years that they got away from the schedule. They got away from the series. When Miami was really, really good in the late 80s or in the 80s, they didn't play for 14 years. And when they finally played again, Miami won 4 more in a row. So that's a series that you would think would constantly be played, like Miami and Florida State. But yes, and then UCF, I mean, again, that can only help UCF, that game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if they lose to Florida, it's like, okay, you're supposed to lose to Florida technically. But if you go and win that game, that'd be huge for the Knights. It'd be huge for, the Big 12 to an extent. So, yeah, I caught that tweet, and I was like, oh, my gosh, that non-con is pretty impressive, minus the Sanford. But you're like, yeah, thank God you got 4 of them, right? Thank God you got that Sanford game on there, because you do need a break somewhere along the way. Couple more notes.
By the way, Florida and UCF, because UCF is so young, they played last year, 2 years ago, and my UCF beat
last year or 2 years ago.
21. It's 21-19. And I think that might have been a bowl game.
That was a bowl game.
It was a bowl
UCF
game.
won. And, there's a whole meme where this girl wore a UCF shirt to piss off her Florida coworker. It was pretty funny a while back. And, that was all a result of that bowl outcome. So, that's a tough road for Billy Napier and company. Not this year, but the year after. And a fun schedule, though, for Florida fans. We'll see how fun it is when they actually see the results, though. Meanwhile, Major League Baseball moving closer to having a team in Las Vegas. The Oakland A's got some good news as there was a vote just yesterday out in Las Vegas that marked a big step forward for A's relocation. The Nevada Assembly voting to approve a final version of a bill for a proposed 30,000-seat baseball stadium that will be built on the Las Vegas Strip. All it awaits now is a signature from Nevada's governor, plus approval from Major League Baseball, both which should happen without an issue. But the vote was 25-15, approving $380 million in public funding money for the project, which overall is expected to ring in at around $1.5 billion. They had made some changes and had the Senate vote on it the day prior. And then pushed it through and got the final step in there on Wednesday, or one of the final major steps. Rob Manfred, MLB commissioner, he was asked about the A's fans, and I don't know if you've seen just the reactions that are going on out there right now, because the writing's kind of on the wall. They're doing what they can, but man, they just don't feel like they have much of a voice, or there's much of anything they can do to prevent this. And they've seen all their other sports teams leave here over the last few years. He said to The Athletic that I hear from them, I feel sorry for the fans in Oakland. I do not like this outcome. I understand why they feel the way they do, but he is not going to anyway step in the way of getting a baseball team in Las Vegas. So that is well on its way to happening. And go ahead.
The stadium capacity is what?
30,000.
That would be the lowest stadium capacity among the 30 Major League Baseball teams.
It sounded low. I didn't look into how much, though. But
the highest is Oakland, which was a football stadium, 56,782, just ahead of Dodger Stadium.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's moving forward, and the A's are going to be in Las Vegas sooner rather than later. Just a couple more here. Man, I love Conor McGregor, but man, these last 2 years have just been
nuts,
off the rails. He's trying to make a comeback now. He seems like he's sobered up a bit. He seems like he's grown up a bit. He had his little one-on-one sit-down PR interview with the UFC media, and said all the right things, and seems like a guy who basically got it all really quickly, achieved his dream, and then got lost in the pool of money and women and attention and all the other things that come with being the massive superstar that he was just a few years ago. He's still a big star, but it just seems like he keeps stepping into things and keeps running into allegations. And the other night, did you see the Miami Heat game where he showed up and was a special guest, and they had a bit where he punches the Miami Heat mascot, except it turned out that he hit the mascot actually too hard and sent the person underneath the suit to the hospital. So you have this a setup thing to promote, what he's doing and all that. And he ends up, sending the mascot to the hospital. Well, now stemming from the exact same game, the Heat are now investigating allegations that McGregor might have sexually assaulted a woman in a bathroom at the home arena, according to a statement released on Thursday. The Heat said they're aware of allegations. They're conducting a full investigation, and pending that, they're not going to have any further comment. The UFC is apparently aware. NBA is apparently aware. They're all saying basically the same thing. They're going to look into it, and they've all released statements at this point in time. It occurred allegedly during Game 4, where he was there in attendance, and again took part in a little halftime skit where he actually hurt the mascot. So we'll see where this goes. But man, he just can't just walk the narrow, straight path. It just, something always ends up happening with him.
He hit the mascot kind of the top of the head, knocked off the feathers, but then followed up when he was down on the ground and
nailed him again.
And again, it's just a mascot outfit, and I think he might have hit him right in the damn head.
Yeah, and it gets deeper into the allegations as far as the sexual assault and what happened there. But yeah, apparently he held her purse hot, and it gets into that if you want to read more on it. But
man, security cameras.
Yeah, and I loved Conor McGregor, especially at his peak, and I just hate that there's usually a fall from grace for guys like that when you're just such a supernova. But still, it's just painful to see, and I wish he could just get cleaned up and avoid some of this. And not to say that that's true, right? It's just an allegation, but that was a double whammy of a night for him. He should probably stay away and may not have the choice to be at Miami Heat games much further. And meanwhile, one final note I'll go here. Norm Hitchkiss of The Ticket in Dallas, a longtime radio personality here in Texas.
In Dallas, a long time.
Did some national things along the way as well. At one point in time, long time ago, failed experiment. We was doing Friday Night Baseball, I think it was, for ESPN. That didn't last very long. But for those here in Texas, especially in DFW, I mean, Norm's an icon in sports radio and in Dallas-Fort Worth media. He's getting up there. I mean, no doubt. He's slowed down over the years.
78 years old.
Yeah, 78. He's had some health issues along the way. But he announced today that he is retiring from radio after, 55 years, I believe. Is that what it was?
If he's 78, he probably got into it in the mid-20s, early 20s, yeah.
Yeah, after he's retiring from radio. I thought I just had the date just in front of me.
Let me tell you Norm Hitchkiss' story. First of all, I don't know. We've had Chuck Cooperstein on, in fact, recently. Chuck is a younger version of an encyclopedia when it comes to basically every sport. Norm Hitchkiss, when I started listening to him, I could actually pick it up in Tyler. He's at KLAF. Randy Galloway was on WBAP, a mother load of a signal on 820. And those two guys were amazing. And there were others. Brad Sham did talk radio for a while, but when I was in television, and I got a job in sports talk radio in 1990, before my first week on the air doing the show, which I had no clue what I was doing, I went to Dallas, and I got there very early in the morning and sat in on Norm Hitchkiss' show for about 2 hours. He gave me his rundown. He gave me all sorts of advice, none of it condescending. He was so nice to me. And then Galloway did it as well, and Galloway's a great guy as well. And I love Norm Hitchkiss, is for what he's meant to the business, but also for what he helped me do. One of the first things he said to me was, and Galloway said the same thing, nobody's going to be listening to you in Tyler, Texas. They don't even understand. Now, sports talk radio, you listen to the stations in Dallas. No one is going to be listening to you, so get as many possible guests as possible as you can, because when you say let's take phone calls, you might get one. And I loaded up with some great interviews, thank God, and those two are the ones that gave me that piece of advice, which was so true, and I just love both those guys for what they did.
So 48 years in the business for Norm. I tracked that down. It wasn't 55, but 48 years of doing sports coverage, and he is going to retire at age 78, and huge outpouring of support for him, as you might imagine, especially from those in Dallas. So wanted to mention the great Norm Hitchkiss. No, that doesn't register nationally, although he's got, he's pretty well known, and
he is a statistic.
Loves the draft. Loves the NFL draft.
His coverage of the NFL draft from start to finish, every team, every player, every round was legendary.
It was thorough. It was good. In later years, I listened to it. It was a little bit more slow, like it was sharp, but he's 78 years old. But man, he was as thorough as anybody. And to be at station in Dallas, he didn't go up there when they had the number 1 pick every year. He was just there regardless.
Yep. And
did the entire draft, 1 through 7 rounds, with varying rotating cast of characters depending on who was with them. But yeah, just wanted to shout out Norm Hitchkiss on calling it a career after 48 years. And no, there are a few things off the radar.
Yeah, and I don't know how long they reduced the rounds to 17 to 12 in 1977, and then reduced it to 8 rounds in 1993. He was doing it when there was more than 7 rounds. He is a magic man when it comes to radio. Thank you, Craig. Great stuff with Off the Radar. We'll update you on the U.S. Open a little bit at the bottom of the hour, but coming up next, it took a while. Jalen Bridges, of course, entered the NBA draft, decided to take himself out, had options of what to do, either professionally or was he going to come back and play college basketball? Was he going to come back to Baylor for one more year? Jalen Bridges, next on 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on. They're the people that I have counted on a couple of previous occasions, as I've outlined before. My car got in a couple of road rage incidents. Thankfully, I wasn't the one raging, but I was on the receiving end of it, or my car was more specifically, and had to get some dents taken out. And Richard Carr was the place that I went, and they took care of it, and you wouldn't notice. There's no remaining after effects. Looks like the day that I bought it, my vehicle, and I'm thankful to Richard Carr for how well they handled that on both occasions. And I know now from my experience that they will provide you with great customer service, great deals, and just some great people over there at the dealership waiting to put you in a brand new vehicle, a pre-owned vehicle, or making sure that the vehicle that you're in right now continues driving to the best of its ability. Right now, as far as new vehicles go, Richard Carr has dozens of Sierra trucks as they celebrate their 24th anniversary sales event right now at the dealership. Big savings all across the lot. Qualified buyers can save thousands on a new 2023 GMC Sierra SLT or SLE 1500. You can also, for qualified buyers, get special financing on the new 2023 GMC Sierra. Some limitations do apply, so when you go over there or email them or give them a phone call, they can get more into the nitty-gritty of the details. But right now, save $3,000 on new 2023 GMC Sierra SLT or SLE 1500s. You can also, if you're looking to buy new, look at the lineup of Buick SUVs from the Encore to the Envision to the Enclave. Save $2,500 and get low financing on Enclave Premiums, $3,500 off right now on Enclave Avenires, if that's up your alley. But if you're not looking to buy new, they also have a lot full of quality pre-owned cars and trucks as well, many of them under $20,000. And their award-winning service department is standing by to keep you on the road if that's all you're looking for, whether it's tires, get an oil change, whatever it is, body work like I had to get done. Their award-winning service department is standing by. You can go to their website, richardcar.com, to see their service specials and set an appointment for quick and reliable repair. So buying new, buying used, looking at SUVs, looking at trucks, whatever it may be, or just looking at getting the car, truck, or SUV that you're in right now fixed up, they can take care of you as they have for 24 years here in Central Texas. Throughout that time, they built a reputation as the people you can count on. Log on to richardcar.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak and Craig Smoak.
All right, this 5 o'clock hour, we'll check in with the U.S. Open with Art Strickland in L.A. at L.A. North Country Club. And what a round early with Ricky Fowler and Xander Schauffele. But what a big story last night for Baylor in men's basketball. Jalen Bridges decides to come back for one more year to play for Scott Drew and company and be in Waco. And Jalen joins Craig Smoak and me, David Smoak, on 365 Sports. Jalen, first of all, thank you very much for your time. What was the sense with your mind or whatever when you made the final decision to return to Baylor?
I was considering ball career moving forward. Like, is that coming back to Waco and playing for Coach Drew and Baylor, or is that going to Australia? And I came to the conclusion that I probably should go back to school and just graduate and lead my team.
Would you consider it a struggle, Jalen, a tug of war kind of back and forth, or did it end up being kind of a simple decision for you in the end?
It was definitely a tug of war. I was going back and forth like from a day-to-day basis. One second I'm thinking Australia, the next I'm thinking school. It was really tough, and at the end of the day, I just thought about where I would be happiest at and where I felt like I'd really be able to thrive, and felt like I already had that, and just decided to come back.
The announcement came yesterday, but when did you tell Scott Drew, and what was his reaction?
It was kind of already in the works. Like, I was already kind of leaning towards coming back, but I actually didn't end up being able to get on the phone with him until after, like, it was already announced. But he was ecstatic. He said it made his night.
When I text him about making sure we're going to get you on, and I was talking to John Jacobs as well, and I think he was out fishing. He might have been. He loves to go fishing. I think he was out fishing. So you're coming back. You were one of the guys last year that was a major part of the team. What have you learned? How much did the Baylor part of it, not just the basketball program, but about what you learned about the university help in your decision as well?
Just like our culture that we built, even though I've only been a part of it for a short time. But, it's special. Guys really are selfless, and we have a wonderful coaching staff, and it's not really like that in a lot of places. And just knowing that in my heart, it was hard to turn Baylor down. It was hard to close that door.
So you had a little bit of working knowledge of Baylor from, obviously seeing them when you were out in Morgantown, and then enough to, make you feel comfortable, decide to make the move here last year, and now obviously come back again. But you had a loose knowledge of them, right? But what was something maybe you learned being a part of the program that you were unaware of previously?
I would say the one thing I learned is that, like I said, the selflessness that guys just play with. It's not guys worrying about keeping their averages up or doing this or individual gain. It's all about how we can make each other better and how we can be the best team possible. And that's, like I said, that's really special. And I just love being a part of it, and it was super easy to say yes for one more year, one more go around.
What did you learn about yourself during the process from the time you entered the draft until you made the final decision to return to Baylor?
I learned that I can do a lot of different things on the basketball court. I feel like I truly made the most out of this process. I feel like I really improved all around, and I'm super excited to get to work with my guys.
There's a lot of new parts, the incoming freshmen, transfers, because that's the way it is. I mean, that's how you ended up at Baylor. And there's a lot of guys that were a part of a great run that are no longer a part of the program. What are your thoughts about how much do you know some of the incoming players? And are you on your way back to Waco right now, or are you already back in town?
To answer your last question, I literally just got back in town probably about 20 minutes ago. So I just I'm not even really settled yet. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a lot of new faces. But at the end of the day, it's guys that want to be here. So there's really no complaints about that. And as far as they've been on multiple visits, so I'm kind of familiar with them. Mm-hmm. They're really talented. And then as far as transfers, I haven't met Jaden yet, but I had to work out. I had to chop it up with Ray J a little bit and talk to him and try to recruit him. And apparently, I was a good recruiter.
Yeah, because he's coming from Toledo, right? He's I don't know if he's already on campus or not. I'm sure he is because I know.
I believe he's here already.
All right. So, give us an idea about Ray J and some of those that you did get to meet on some of their official visits or their visits to Baylor. You kind of feel like they found the right pieces to go along with what is returning, including you?
Nah, absolutely. From what I saw from Ray J, he's a true point guard. He knows how to play. He knows how to get his own and also get his guys involved. And then as far as the young guys, just watching them throughout their young careers, they're two-way players. They do a lot of different things. And what more could you want out of young, talented freshmen that are coming in? Contributing immediately.
The NBA is hard to get into, and that's obviously a numbers game as much as anything, 30 teams, but just 2 rounds of the draft. But you did enter, and you were at least considered, and you considered, maybe staying in the draft. What did they tell you, draft scouts or whoever, about what you are now and what else you need to be maybe in a year from now when the draft's coming around again?
The main thing that they were kind of saying was my consistency, how I started the year slow. They would just like to see a full body of work, basically. But that just comes with me, stepping up as a leader, being a little bit more assertive, and just continuing to play the way I play, make winning plays, play with energy, and try to lock up.
Jalen, obviously last season did not end the way you guys wanted to. What does that do to fuel your fire and also make sure it's contagious for everybody else during the rest of the summer and into the fall?
Honestly, last year makes me kind of frustrated because And the 2 times that I've been to the NCAA tournament, first with West Virginia and then obviously this past season with Baylor, I haven't made it past the first weekend, so I'm trying to go a little bit further. Try to bring one home.
Well, since the national title, they got knocked out in round 2 by North Carolina, and then, of course, last year ended quickly with Creighton. What, if anything, would you say about last year's team that might have been missing?
I'm not really sure that anything was missing. I feel like if you envision the ideal college basketball team, that was us. Like we had everything you could possibly need. It was just, I don't know, things just didn't work out as they thought. I feel like defensively we could have been a little bit better, and trying to focus less on trying to outscore people and rather focus more on stopping people. I feel like that was really the only thing that kind of held us back.
That schedule is going to be loaded, but you're used to that. If you kind of had a chance to digest non-conference along with everything else is coming with the Big 12, with Houston now entering the conference among others?
No, it's going to be a lot of good college basketball games, especially in our conference. It was loaded last year. It's loaded again. It's been loaded basically since I've been a part of it. So I'm super excited to just, like I said, get to work and take it one game at a time.
Hey, thank you for giving us time on your way back into town. I know you have family to deal with and not deal with, but be a part of as well. I'm sure everyone's happy to see you. I know Scott Drew and staff will be happy to see you as Baylor Nation as well. Thank you very much for your time and good luck. We'll talk to you again soon, Jalen.
For sure. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
You too. Thank you. Just got into Waco, Jack McKenzie and Craig Smoak, and now a part of 365 Sports. Yeah, I should have said, I don't know where you've been, but welcome to the whatever you would call it. Yeah, it feels like
the Inferno.
The Inferno. Thank you very much to Jalen Bridges. Appreciate that. And Jack wrote a story about it. They needed it. I think I saw Kendall Cowd has a story in 365, Sikkim 365 Premium about what his return means to the team. And there was a time 3-4 weeks ago when you're looking around at that roster and they felt they were going to fill it, had to wait for the NBA draft process to kind of run its course. And now they've been able to fill it up and always looking for somebody else as well. Thank you again to Jalen Bridges.
I mean, is that basically it now? Like we kind of know there's
Jack.
Is that basically it at this point with the roster?
Yeah, that should be it.
Okay, yeah. Now we can just sort of focus on Keontae George and where he goes in the NBA draft and perhaps, I guess, whether Adam Flagler gets drafted as well. That's a little bit more of a toss-up, but that's pretty much on the radar. So good to kind of just be able to breathe and not have to worry about anything as far as roster construction goes, because that's been a main focus for several weeks now.
They were going to fill it. It was just a matter with what, and it seemed like they've got some nice new pieces and toys to play with now with their roster. Paxton just sent me a video of, I think this is his backyard in Perrington, and they are getting destroyed with, I believe, hail.
Oh, wow. Well,
Paxton on the chat room is that I have not played the video. I just saw like about 5 seconds of it. I mean, it is power maybe out. And, man, that area has been crushed. Lots of water, tons of water. So be careful where you are. We, of course, had something a couple weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, that was pretty frightening. Not just a storm, but a big-time storm. So good luck to those of you in the Panhandle and even in parts of Oklahoma with the weather you're dealing with. All right, when we come back, Art Strickland is in L.A. He is one of our PGA Tour analysts. Yesterday, Rob Bolton said Ricky Fowler would play well. My goodness, 62 along with Xander Schauffele. We'll hear from Art Strickland. That course seems to be playing pretty well. Easy. Well, at least for 2. That's next. This is 365 Sports. The City of Woodway. Go to discoverwoodway.com. I've gone over the last couple of times. I've discussed them with events that they have coming up. There's going to be a 4th of July parade. There's events before it inside the City of Woodway. But one of the things that they've done is they've been renovating some of their elite-type venues, some of where they have weddings or where symposiums, business meetings, and yes, a lot of what the events they have for the public and the folks in the City of Woodway. Concerts, too. They have a concert series, including one in July. But also hotel rooms. And with Waco, and when I arrived here back in 2010, there were some hotels, but there weren't many. Magnolia and the Silos changed that, plus the growth of Waco. And Woodway has hotels for you. If you don't find something you need or you can't find something closer to where you are, Woodway's an 8 to 12, 15-minute drive based on traffic. They have 7 hotels for you, too. It's discoverwoodway.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
The future's bright, the time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late-night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House. Samantha Duvall is in charge of marketing and also distribution. Memorial Day, right around the corner, 4th of July. What are some of the best opportunities for people if they want to order online and maybe get a bundle when they have those holidays in front of them?
TexasBeefHouse.com. You can order. We've got plenty of family bundles. Probably our most bestseller is our sampler pack. That gives you a variety of our jalapeno and cheese patties, our regular patties, ground beef, our garlic link summer sausage. Right now, all of our family bundles are on sale. It's the best time to buy it. You can buy steaks individually. All of our steaks come 2 to a package. We ship Monday through Wednesday. So make sure you get your orders in early. That way you can get them almost the next day.
The owner, Aaron Duvall, his daughter-in-law, Samantha Duvall, head of marketing and distribution, unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
It's Jeep season at Allen Samuels in Waco, and the deals are hot. Get a 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo with $5,500 in total values, or a 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport with total values up to $6,000.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
So the U.S. Open is going on. I have not even had a chance to look at my team. Rob Bolton will update the draft we had yesterday. Emery, Craig, Rob, and my team as well. But my goodness, I was able to watch about an hour. Ricky Fowler and Xander Schauffele blistering 62 to break the record for a single round of the U.S. Open. The reflection I have of the U.S. Open's lowest round was in 1973. Johnny Miller shot 63 to win it. Bryson DeChambeau, Scotty Scheffler, a couple of nice names. Siwoo Kim, another really good player. are all 3 under par. A couple of other names, Max Homa, 2 under par, he's done. Players who are on the course right now, 2 under par, Dustin Johnson, Sam Burns, Keith Mitchell, Rory McIlroy's 2 under through 4 holes. And they go down the list, Victor Hovland, done, 1 under par. John Rahm, done, 1 under par. Mickelson, I thought, was 1 or 2 under par early on in his round. Cam Smith, 1 under through 5. Let's see. Sergio Garcia shot even par. Gary Woodland's won a U.S. Open in his career, even par. He's done. Canadian Adam Hadwin, who survived the tackle on the 18th green at the Canadian Open, even par. He's done. Now, Eckroat, Emery, your buddy who you drafted, even through 7. Billy Horschel, how about that after the horrible tournament in Ohio, is even through 5. Matsuyama, even through 4. We'll have Art Strickland on here in just a second. Let me get to some of the bigger names that are Morikawa shot 1 over. Thigala is 1 over on the course. Spieth 1 over through 4. Nick Taylor, who won last week, 1 over through 4. And that's about it, right? Patrick Reed shot 2 over. And I don't... Emery, do you see Mickelson?
Yeah, last time I checked, he was under par.
Fleetwood 3 over, Justin Thomas 3 over. They are done. Jason Day 3 over for the day. So the course, there are some high scores, and there will be at an Open. But my goodness, Art Strickland, the Art of Golf, joins us. Baylor alum as well from LA North Country Club. What on earth did we see today with both Schauffele and Ricky Fowler?
Well, I think we saw the Quad Cities Classic today. I mean, I think it's just a birdie fest. And, you know, I got to be honest with you, Smokey. When I heard the fairways were going to be 40 yards wide, which is twice the size they usually are the U.S. Open, I thought there could be trouble. And then they said, well, you know, rough stuff and, you know, you can't miss fairway, blah, blah, blah. But let's just face it, these guys are tearing it win from win. We've already had our second hole-in-one today. Sam Burns just made a hole-in-one. And I counted it up in the media center, and it may have changed since the last time I did it. There were 69 players, 69 at even or under par currently. And, yeah, it's just certainly not a U.S. Open. And, you know, I did a long interview with Fred Paul from Dallas, the new USGA president, and he would never come out and say this. He just said, we don't dictate score. We want a tournament. They have to use all 14 clubs, get them dirty. But USGA can't be happy with this. They just can't. This is not their identity. And the players now have to adjust, don't you think, Smokey?
Oh, yeah.
If you came in thinking bogey is okay and par is your friend, you got to throw that out the window right now.
Yeah, you know, it's the U.S. Open does, you hear that word, they trick it up. The rough is massive where you could almost not even see your ankles, and it rewards, you know, people hitting the fairway. By the way, I mentioned Mickelson, he's 2 under through 7. He's off to another nice start, played the Masters great. Art, what will they do now? Will they, I mean, the course is what it is. Will they trick it up tomorrow? Will they? It's overcast. I don't know if it's gotten sunny or not. That means it's not. It's still going to be somewhat moist.
The sun's come out a little bit here, but still very little wind, David. Very little wind here. You know, they can't do a whole lot. But they're not bringing the fairways in 20 yards overnight.
No.
You know, that can't happen. I think obviously they can speed the greens up. You know, double cut them tonight. Put the pins in some different positions, but you know, you got to look at this, David. Winning score is going to be 15, maybe 17 under par, and that's shocking for a U.S. Open. So players are going to have to adjust. Great players always adjust. You know, they see the conditions and they adjust their game to the conditions. Well, the conditions here are birdie fest all the way, which is certainly not what you expect from a U.S. Open, but as people have said, LA, you know, they haven't been to LA in 75 years. They've never been to LA North. So really didn't have a reading on what the pros would do here. Now I think they have a pretty good reading what the pros will do here. You know, Marion showed in 2013 when Justin Rose won with a 3-over par score. Tight fairways, small greens are really the only way to combat these. They're the best players in the world. And that's exactly what they're showing today, Smokey.
Yeah, they are. And what I normally at a U.S. Open, like there are in some other tournaments, someone unknown will vault up and like surprise. Solomon had a good round today. Obviously, there's a few others, but this is littered with big names. This is not like the cream will rise to the top at the end of the second round into the weekend. They're already up there.
Yeah, and again, in the Vander Shapley even said when he came in the media center in the interview room, he said, "Why can't we do this again tomorrow?" And I think that's kind of what they're thinking. I think that's their mindset. And so, USGA has got to be concerned because every major, David, this has an identity. The Masters' identity is we play the same place every year. We got history coming out our ears. PGA is we've got great shot makers and fun courses. British Open is we got weather. You're going to have to overcome the weather. U.S. Open is this is going to be a grind out, par fest. And certainly that was not the case for day one. And to be honest with you, I don't see that as the case for days 2, 3, or 4 either.
I saw where Koepka, I couldn't find him. He's 2 over through 4. He's on number 5, so it's kind of a rugged start. We bogeyed the par 5 number 1. So I saw shots. I played earlier today, and I was in the area where we gathered to look at bets and whatever else. And I saw shots on par 3s where they weren't even trying to hit the green. They were trying to hit to the left of the green to roll onto the green. Am I right there? That some of those,
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And also, David, I don't know if this came across on TV, but they're putting tremendous spin on the ball. And so when you've got a lie in the fairway, and it's hard not to hit the fairways here, but you have a lie in the fairway, you can put a tremendous amount of spin on the ball. So you see a lot of guys aiming for the corners, spinning it toward the hole. And that's what they did. They're really good at that. Bunkers, there's not, they're in the fairway. It's hard to hit a bunker from the fairway. I think the USGA's got to be a little shell-shocked. They didn't admit that, but they have to be, just the way it's turned out today. And I don't really know what you do. For people like to see birdies and low scores, well, hey, this is your week. And one thing, and it's still early to tell this because there's a ton of guys out there, but the cut line could be under par for the U.S. Open. I think you'd have to go a long way back to find the last time the cut for the U.S. Open was under par.
Art, the Ricky Fowler story, we all know how elite he was. I use that word a lot too much, but he was really good, among the best in the world. He then has been through kind of a journey to get back, and you could see he was playing much better recently. Rob Bolton from the PGAtour.com said yesterday he thought Ricky would play well. The Butch Harmon influence, how much of that influence have we seen today and really in recent weeks as well?
Oh, I think you've seen a lot. Butch is an entertaining guy. He's a great quote, good interview, but he's a heck of a teacher. And the fact that he went with him, but Ricky, this is how golf loves the comeback story. Look at Brooks Koepka. Really was down in the dumps to watch the Netflix series, never going to win again. He comes back and wins the PGA. Mm-hmm. Ricky Fowler has only played 4 majors in the last 3 years. And I'm going to help your mathematics from SFA. There's been 12 majors in the last 3 years. He's only played in 4 of them. So, that's pretty amazing. Now, obviously, played the Texas Open this year because he was trying to get in the Masters. Didn't play in the Masters this year, but he's now top 50 in the world. Top 50 in the world gets you into all 4 of the majors. So he'll be playing at Hoylake, and, great for Ricky. Both he and Xander are both Southern California kids.
Mm-hmm.
Xander went to San Diego State and grew up in the San Diego area. Ricky grew up in Southern California, Murata. And so a lot of fans rooting for him, but I really think Ricky's one of the most popular guys around because even though he has struggled in everyone knows how hard he is. So he's never lost his friendliness. He still signs 1 million autographs. He's still helpful to the media or answer any questions. And to not let your score dictate your attitude, I think that's what people really appreciate about Ricky.
Did today with his round, was it his ball striking? Was it his short game? Was it his driver? What obviously everything with what he shot, but was there anything maybe even more crisp or razor sharp than the other parts of his game?
I really think it was putting, David. He made pretty much everything he looked at inside of 15 feet. I mean, obviously, he's a great driver, ball striker, but, man, he made a ton of putts. He made a putts on 8. Even when he hit it, he hit it in the blank on number 8, and kind of underneath the bridge almost. Chipped it out, knocked it on the green, one putted for birdie on 8. And then comes the 9. He hits it on the right side. Easy 2-putt, 3-putt for a 62, which was the all-time record for all of 20 minutes until Evander Schauffele comes back and ties the all-time record.
That's nuts.
62.
Yeah, when I saw the number, what he was getting close to, and on the chat room, they were keeping us up with it as well. And I saw 62 as a possibility. I'm not sure, Art, you and I'm a little bit older than you, or maybe a lot bit older than you. The first thing I thought about was Johnny Miller, and I think was at Oakmont shooting 63 to win the Open. Was that kind of pop into your head too?
Final round. And I didn't realize, so I started doing research, both Jack Nicklaus and Tom Weiskopf shot 63 the first round at Baltusrol in 1980 when Jack won his next to last Masters. So 63 has been done a bunch. Both Nicklaus and Weiskopf did it first round at Baltusrol. Johnny did it last round at Oakmont. But gosh, that's an awful low score. And to go one below that, go at 62. And, I just think that guys will be doing a lot of thinking tonight when they get back to the hotel, assuming they survive the traffic on the 405. But I think they're going to be doing a lot of thinking when they get back that, forget this play for par and 2-putt everything. I've got to go pin hunting tomorrow. If I don't, I'm going to be 10 shots out of the lead when the cut's made. And, look at some guys already are that way. I mean, Jordan Spieth's playing right now. I think he's maybe 9 shots out of the lead. Scotty has had a great round. I think he's 5 back. So, you better go pin hunt tomorrow, or it's going to be a long weekend if you're trying to catch the leaders.
Art Strickland, one more question from L.A. North, the first round of the Open with the two guys going at 8 under or 62 with Schauffele and also Ricky Fowler. Is there a number at the end of today that you are probably, because the Open we're used to guys shooting 4 or 5 over par and still getting to the cut like you mentioned, is there a number that you're done? Is it 2 or 3 over, or is it where you could turn it around and maybe things change tomorrow?
Well, the old saying about the Masters, I think it's true anywhere. You can't win the Masters on the first day, but you can lose it on the first day. And, by no means do I think that Ricky and Xander have won the U.S. Open today. But I just think that you better be around, if you're not around even par after today, then, you got your work cut out for you because you're going to have to go low. And, Koepka was in the interview room saying, I don't do well at Birdie Fest. I do well when par's a good score.
Yep.
Well, guess what, Brooke? That's not the tournament you're facing. So, anyway, I think you need to be around even par. And again, I did the quick math. 69 players were even par or lower the last time I checked. And, that's nearly half the field. It's pretty remarkable, really.
All right, Art, you have a business. You take people on trips to go see the great courses around the country, whether it's overseas, whether it's in Scotland or anywhere around the country. Give us maybe your next trip or how people can get in touch if they're interested in making a memorable journey and also play some great golf.
Sure. We just got back from Scotland week after last where I did shoot at 88 at the old course. Thank you very much. But we had a great trip to Scotland. Took 8 guys. Really memorable. We're having a fun little 4-day trip to northern Michigan at the end of July. Anybody wants to escape the Waco weather? We're going the 31st of July through the 3rd of August up to northern Michigan, 36 a day. It's going to be about 70 degrees, 65, and some great courses right on Lake Michigan. Then we're going to go up to see Big Cedar Lodge and Tiger Woods course in September. So we're doing that. Then we've got a couple other private trips. I take guys on some private golf trips, places they can't get on. Took a couple guys down to Seminole in South Florida in May, and we're going to go up to Philadelphia area in July. So glad to have them join us. Everything's on the website, Smokey. www.artofgolftravel.com.
All right, Art. Thank you, buddy, for the insight. Art Strickland, PGA Tour writer. Kim was talking about on the first hole, they moved the tees up 50 yards. I haven't watched but an hour. I haven't been listening to any of the coverage, so maybe they will toughen it up a little bit tomorrow. Jack, can we play that video that I sent you? Did you get that email that I sent to Garrett? I thought I'd text you. I'm sorry. Maybe I didn't send the text. Listen, we're a family, and Paxton has been on the chat room. There is horrible weather in Perryton, Texas, in the Panhandle, and also parts of Oklahoma. We're talking about, like, for example, pray for my hometown of Perryton, Texas. So the video he sent was of his backyard. We've shown that pool before getting pelted with horrible type of hail. So we're thinking about you. Golly, we've had some weather, haven't we? Let's see. Roger the Dodger, there's some warnings around the Panhandle. I'm not a meteorologist. I'm not going to try to guess, but we are thinking about everybody that is in that area, and we hope you are safe and get through the day. Here's the video. Good gosh. All right, there, Paxton, man, good luck, and everybody. That looks like incoming, like, right? Doesn't that look like something's incoming, like Game of Thrones or something? The way that what? No,
what does that mean?
I don't know.
Game of Thrones.
Like, what's the one that had the girl and the dragon? What's the name of that?
Game of Thrones, but what does incoming like Game of Thrones
like bombs and bullets and spears and stuff that are coming in?
He's probably thinking winter is coming.
Okay, yeah.
Hayden,
gotcha. Okay, yeah.
Maxwell, Craig, I don't get how all the hype of getting another lease on life with an unknown TV deal with Apple is gaining steam again in the news. Explain.
I guess I don't know what he's referring to. Where's it gaining steam?
I haven't seen anything yet. Yeah, Hayden, if you want to, real quickly on the chat, give us an update on what you've heard and maybe if there's some kind of report. I don't know. I mean,
look, we've sat here for nearly 3 hours now, and I don't think we've talked any realignment, which might be a first.
We mentioned the Colorado board reading, but we didn't mention much more about it. Yeah,
but it said that could be like it has been most of the time, absolutely nothing. But hey, hopefully that is something that eventually, reveals or indicates, there's an end in sight. But yeah, not to dismiss your question at all. I've looked around while they were talking golf. I was not. I didn't have any questions. Like I've said, I'm not a golf fan, so I didn't really have any questions. So I was, listening, but I was also just looking around because I was thinking, well, we're at the end of the show, and we haven't really talked much in terms of realignment. I know that's why a lot of people listen and all that, but we've also said we're not going to just make up stuff. And today, I haven't seen anything really to rattle the headlines or anything along those lines. Maybe you have, and maybe Hayden can pass that along, but it seems like it's kind of status quo today.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything at all. And again, we will discuss it, but we're not going to throw darts against the wall to see which one of them stick. Jack?
I mean, Smokey, you did send me the clip of Ray Anderson on ASU podcast.
Yeah,
it was a couple days ago.
Do you want to break and hit that and the
we'll come
Gordon
back
Gee?
and close out the show with E. Gordon Gee, the president at West Virginia, and also Ray Anderson, the athletic director at Arizona State.
Good call,
with a couple of pieces of audio. Really good call, Jack. This is 365 Sports. Texas Beef House. And that doesn't have to be Father's Day weekend. It doesn't have to be 4th of July. It can be for you every day with what they have, because what they have is Wagyu beef. Raised in East Texas. Family-owned and operated business. Aaron Duvall and his family and those who work for Texas Beef House, they do an incredible job. And from the start to the finish, they are right there making sure every piece of the product, the beef that you get sent to you or you buy online or you make phone calls to order, is perfect. By the way, they have bundles. I've mentioned them before, whether it's hamburger patties, even the garlic sausage, the various hamburger patties from regular Wagyu beef to also including jalapeno and cheese. It's really good. I cooked some and brought it to the studio back when Texas Beef House first came on as a sponsor. Brisket, sausage, Wagyu steaks. This is all Wagyu. Brisket, sausage, hamburger patties, ground beef. If you want, of course, the amazing steaks they have when it comes to Wagyu beef. I have in my deep freeze, I have some ribeyes, and I also have some New York strip that are fantastic for maybe even a stir fry or just eating it as a steak with a baked potato and whatever vegetable you have. And there's always something. You can order. Kim Coulter, I've mentioned this, ordered a bunch of product back when he was in Hawaii to send the people that he loves. Where is the beef in Texas? Well, you're home when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate. TexasBeefHouse.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine 9 Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports. Check out the 365 Sports family of channels on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
So, kind of combing through some things. A lot of times every evening I'll get some people share videos or maybe tweets, whatever, on stories that we cover because we have a great audience. We appreciate that. Here is a part of an interview with Ray Anderson. He's the athletic director at Arizona State. Now, this was a lengthy interview, and he had mentioned earlier that we need to see the numbers. We need to see the deal. We've heard that not ad nauseum, but we've heard it a lot. But here's a clip on Ray Anderson, the AD at Arizona State. If you listen to this, you would think that there's no way Arizona State would ever leave, and they don't probably want to. But here's what he had to say about anything with the Big 12 or other conferences outside of the Pac-12.
Do you think there would ever be a scenario that would make sense for Arizona State to explore another conference? And if so, what would that scenario have to be?
Well, we're just very frankly, and Dr. Crow said this and I've said this, we're solidly in the Pac-12, Pac-10. Call it what you want. It's the PAC. And that's where we really believe we belong and we want to be, with a lot of like-minded schools with very good competition and really elite academics. That's important to us. So we don't talk or think about other conferences, very frankly. At one point, there was some discussion last summer about whether or not with the ACC we might think of some scheduling alliance so that some of your non-conference competitions would be consistently with ACC teams and then get some continuity in the scheduling. But beyond that, very frankly, there's been no interest in talking about any of the other conferences. And I'll say it emphatically. I have no interest personally as the AD. I don't make the call finally. That would be the president and the Board of Regents. But I, as an AD, am very committed to the Pac-12.
All right. And Ray Anderson, I think, has always been pretty much making it clear that Arizona State is not going anywhere. And so wanted to at least let you hear him in that particular clip.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that Jack suggested that because I saw that I guess it's maybe on Sunday or something like that, and was like, oh, yeah, that's, something to follow up on. I mean, I don't think that I know there's been reports or talk about four corner schools or however you want to refer to them as and all that, but I don't know about anybody else. I mean, I've just kind of been focused on Arizona and Colorado, if that. If something were to happen, that's kind of where my eyes have been. I feel like Arizona State sort of made their position known, and they've kind of been out of this thing for a while, but I have seen them still continuously get brought up in certain ways. And, if you need any further proof, I don't know what else you need to hear other than that. And that's far more emphatic before anybody says, well, then why don't you listen to Kirk Schultz or why don't you listen to, whoever else has come out and said something? Well, because that's far more direct than anything else that's been said. Like, go to Colorado and wait for the yeah, but that inevitably follows any comment. Same thing with, a couple of the other, quotes that we've heard along the way from, Arizona, for example, with Bobby Robbins. So, he's straight to the point. I appreciate that. I would not consider Arizona State a candidate in any way, even though, like he said, he's just the athletic director and he's not like the school president or those who would be voting on such a move. But, yeah, I don't think Arizona State's coming to the Big 12. I haven't thought that for a while. And, if they were to, that would obviously make him have a lot of egg on his face, but doesn't sound like there's really anything in the works in that way. So, that's pretty plain
right.
And up front.
So there's Ray Anderson. Now, E. Gordon Gee, Brian Etheridge sent this to me, was speaking, I think, in front of students or who it might have been on the campus at West Virginia.
Here we go. And tell me your name and tell me where you're from.
My name's Rocky Nicholas. I'm from Marion County. I'm right on your doorstep. And I was just wondering how you feel about Texas and Oklahoma running away from us.
Oh, well, the best blessing we've ever had. Get rid of those damn Sooners and Bevo's horns down, right, guys? Boy, I'm on a roll now, aren't I? So anyway, the answer is that we have added 4 really excellent teams. In fact, Pete Thamel, who is the head writer for ESPN and for the New York Times, I just talked to on Friday. And he said that from top to bottom, in both football and basketball, the Big 12 is the most competitive conference in the country. The problem is, we have the toughest football schedule in America. I don't know if you saw that. We have the number 1 ranked football schedule in terms of difficulty in the country. I may have to play after about the 3rd game, something like that. I mean, but I think it's a blessing to have Oklahoma Tech, because we all kind of walked on eggshells, but now we have a very cohesive conference. We may add a couple more teams. You never know about that.
All right, so we might add a couple of more teams. You never know about that. So, of course, that was a part of it. The big banger, and Texas OU fans probably just throw out the middle finger, who cares about you, was the comment about, I'm glad they're gone, whatever. And then there's a couple, we might add a couple more teams. So it all depends on what you want to believe, whatever. Still nothing with the Pac-12. Hayden Maxwell was asking about some sort of a deal out there that Apple's going to overpay, whatever. Hayden, I haven't seen that. We've heard people mention Apple 100 times, but I have not seen anything new since the last time we discussed it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you put that in Google, and I don't know for sure, but there's probably results for stories mentioning something along those lines multiple times over the last 12 months that clearly in some cases have not gone anywhere. So I hadn't seen any new speculation or new discussion about that. I had seen, I guess it was what you played yesterday with Marchand and Alrand, and that didn't sound like, Apple was anywhere approaching an overpay deal. And I don't know why they would, other than a lot of studios have overpaid for a lot of their content, as we've seen over these last couple of years, and are now starting to correct course. So, yeah, I mean, I suppose that maybe there's some Silicon Valley connection that results in a group of alums that are the head of big, TV studios to say, like, we'll throw some extra money your way, even though everybody's cutting costs. But, I hadn't seen that, and so that's news if there is something to that. But, in general, there's been nothing that has changed, in the last day or two or what have you in regards to kind of where we sit. I mean, we heard Mack Rhodes, he believes something will happen within the next 60 days, that there kind of has to be something that has to happen. Now, the Big 12, according to him, has not pushed forward a deadline of any sort, but he does think that just inevitably, naturally, something's got to break here. So, the can keeps getting kicked down the road, it feels like, when you start talking about targets and dates and all that. That's a lot of our own doing, quite frankly, just as fans of realignment. But it does feel like we're getting close to something one way or the other, and hopefully that is the case. But, yeah, I hadn't seen anything new on the PAC and Apple or anything about a TV deal.
Well, I haven't either. And Jim Williams has also been one that's discussed a lot. He's got great connections with Apple. But as far as anything that keeps hope alive, and the Pac-12 should not give up. And in the end, they might end up being exactly who they are right now after this year with the 10 teams or whoever else they may add. And who knows, there could be the fact they could lose somebody as well. I just went to weather.com. Already extensive damage in the Panhandle. Paxton's talking about electrical fires. We're thinking about you. And, horrible weather up in the northwest part of Texas and also into the southwest part of Oklahoma. Garrett Ross out right now. Paul's out right now. But we had Jack McKenzie. Jack, fantastic job today. Thank you. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Graham Bronstein, Emery Winter. Hey, don't forget tonight at 10:30, 365 Sports tonight on the CW with our segments and discussion that we'll have for you. Craig, thank you very much. Great stuff. I'm David Smoak. Thanks to our amazing sponsors and you, the audience. Every day we appreciate your time. Good night, 365 Sports.
Ideal MRI is a small family business